Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special Shonen and Chill episode. The first special episode that is not about Manga Ghetto or Bernie Sanders' views on Satoru Gojo. Today we're talking about the big three. This is an episode we've kind of been talking about doing for a while, and we've been mixed, I think, on whether or not we were ever going to do it. Because originally the show was just supposed to be the weekly releases, but I feel like when it comes to older series, some of them are so formative in like what we get now that we have to talk about it at least a little bit. And I think it's hard to look at one other than the big three that fills that role. Maybe Dragon Ball, but that's a story for another day. So we're gonna go through the big three. As you can see, we have of course myself and Mr. Ocean Man, and we also have a
Hello.
special guest, Neo, who I'm sure most of you have probably know. If you don't know, his stuff will be in the description at the bottom. How are you, sir?
Hello, hello. Oh, I'm just doing great. I'm just glad to be here. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you. That was very sweet. It's very nice. Um, so
It stops there. Now nice is over. We're done.
It's the grace period before he rips me to shreds.
That's all you get. We're moving right, plowing ahead. Fast ahead.
Okay,
Oh,
so let's go ahead and we'll start with Naruto because I think that's the safe one to start on. So why don't you take us away, Mr. Naruto rep?
all right. So Naruto is actually the only like of the big three that I actually consumed during my formative period. So it's obviously the one I will have like the most, I don't know, I guess, quote unquote deep connection to, just because it was a series that accompanied me through arguably the most important years for my personal development. And I really do think that Naruto was a great series for that because as a series, Naruto is very much centered around this idea of youth and what it means to come into your own, which, all shonen to a certain extent have that. But I don't know, maybe to my stupid kid brain, Naruto just seemed to do it very, very efficiently and very, very like obviously, so that even I could get it. And it just stayed with me for a very long time. Like the characters of Naruto were all these exaggerated parables of I'm never gonna give up and I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna be the guy. And it's like, nowadays I'm a cynical adult and I look back and I'm like, haha, that's kind of silly. But as a kid, these were very, very powerful things to watch and be entertained by. Just by visual osmosis, I kind of got this impression like, hey, maybe you do need to apply yourself. Maybe you do need to try hard. And maybe you do need to be an annoying little shit about everything. I eventually grew out of that, but um, I really cannot overstate how much of a special place Naruto for me has because it's just the show that kind of formed me. And so now, as an adult looking back on it, there is both this sort of cynical like lens that I have on it as like, oh, some things could have been done better, a lot better, but also like this childhood glee where I'm just like, I don't really care. Like, I don't care that much about the war arc because Sasuke retrieval and the Land of Waves were just such good arcs. And like Naruto Part 1 in general is just such a great sequence of arcs. You start out with, Zabuza, which is so impactful and sets the tone perfectly, and you go into tuning exam, which feels like this monumental thing happening right off the bat. And then you have Tsunade Search, which is boring as fuck, but it's boring as fuck. And then you go to Sasuke Retrieval, which is a great way to end your first part of the story, or the relevant part of the story if you're watching the anime. Um, and so, yeah, Naruto to me has always meant a lot, and I suppose that has always also kind of informed uh, my viciousness when it comes to certain things at the tail end of the series and beyond, especially regarding the ending and Boruto. But so yeah, that's like my general perspective on it. Like I don't know if you wanted me to highlight
I
some of my favorites or whatever.
I think that I actually am the same. Uh, a little bit. No, actually a lot of it. Like Naruto's been in my life for 17 years. And that is actually really depressing to think about, but it's also like incredible
Mm-hmm.
because I got on the train. It was my first. It was my first manga ever,
Mm-hmm.
first anime ever. And when I say anime, I mean like clips on YouTube because it was only in Japan at the time. And then like because I got on it about a year before it came to America on like what Toonami was that Zen?
Yes,
Did
I
it
do
first air
believe
on?
it
I think.
debuted on Toonami. Sort of like that second
And
generation of it, post Dragon Ball,
yeah,
Yu Yu Hakusho, and all that stuff.
and I like grew like this in the same way that you did, Oceans. Like I grew up with him. You know what I mean? Like we grew up together. It's a weird thing to think about, and it's not like anime. I think or shonen manga. It's a rare thing where that's allowed to happen. You know, because like I don't know, like One Piece, like Luffy's the same age, pretty much. Like Ichigo's aging up like happens in time skips. I know we're talking about other things, but like so like Naruto's the one where he starts out as like this little shit, and by the end of it, he's like a full-on adult, and like that. It was really important in my formative years too. So like it's interesting that you say that because I had almost the exact same experience with it.
Yeah, because it's like I think there's something about Naruto that makes it very, very fitting to be consumed at that time. Maybe it is like, as you said, the element of Naruto growing up and growing into a more competent adult, or maybe it's also the fact that Naruto now, especially that I'm rewatching it, I've realized has some pretty heavy like fuck the boomers undertones.
Yeah,
Like
for
every
sure.
yeah, like everything's caused by old people, and it's always the old people that have to like pay for it. And it's like, I was into that when I was a kid, and I'm still kind of into that. So there we go. But yeah, it's interesting that you share that sentiment. What about you, Zen? How did you get into
I actually
Naruto?
was into Naruto as well, and when I was younger, more so than I am now. I kind of had all of the big three running more or less at the same time for me. Like there was not one that I necessarily intook a lot more than the others. I think One Piece was probably the one I was the least engaged with of the three. But I was really big into Naruto when I was younger. I was really big into Bleach when I was younger. With Naruto, there's just something, I don't know if maybe special is the right word. I guess it is, of the
I
way
would
that
say
he's
special.
that he's portrayed so early on. That he's this kid who, you know, kind of gets picked on, but not in a little like snivelly kind of way. I don't know if that's the right way to put it either, but like when you think of a bullied kid, you usually think of like the submissive, glasses, sad. Whereas
Well, like
he's
Peter
sort of,
Parker.
yeah, like a Peter Parker kind of kid, yeah. Whereas
Yeah.
Naruto, like he is, but at the same time, he's the more sort of rebellious teenager, where it's like no one acknowledges me, so I'm going to make everyone acknowledging me by being something bigger, and he sucks really bad at it for a really long time.
He's
Um,
like the ultimate class clown. It's
yeah,
like
he's
always
a
the way
big
that I've
time,
thought about it.
class clown for attention. He wants the recognition, but he doesn't want to put the work in to get it at first because he's kind of lazy and he's not that good at it. And when he starts putting his mind to it, you realize that there's a lot there that people haven't given him the chance to be. And I don't know, to me that's a really great message, especially for the target audience of this, that's like on the younger side is like, Naruto could have easily just gotten lost in all of that and just been nothing. But he really like puts his mind to it and dedicates to becoming something, and it turns out that there's a lot of talent there, and he's actually a good, like, not only is he a good shinobi or whatever, good at what he does, but he's a good person under all that, after all of the shit that he dealt with, where he could have very easily become not a good person. And I don't know, there's just something great about a character who can process all of that stuff without it feeling preachy or like bogging the story down. Because a lot of stuff from that time, when you have like, because Naruto, I would say, kind of fills the role of like the idiot protagonist to an extent, where like people
Yeah.
will say smart stuff at him and he's like, whatever, blammo, super blast, and he wins.
Yeah, just gonna run out and
I'm
do it
just gonna
anyway.
run
Yeah,
and whoop their ass and it's
exactly.
gonna be fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Datebayo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But he's like deceptively smart. Whereas like Goku and Luffy will kind of play it straighter, where like they're the kind of person that's dumb 90% of the time, and then they get into a fight, and it's like, oh, they're geniuses of combat, but they also can't count past 12. And then
Right.
like, but with Naruto, it's more subdued than that, where like he's the determinator who's just gonna run out there and he's gonna win because it's just the cool thing to do. But he's more, I don't know, less cartoony, I think, in his portrayal of it than a lot of characters at that time were. And that resonated
And I
with
just
me
think
a
of
lot.
like the way that, and I know we're probably gonna end up jumping around here just in the way that we're talking about it, but like the way that he solves problems is not smart and it's not stupid. It's just no one else would think to do something like that the way he would. Things like stabbing his hand to like drain poison, which is a horribly inefficient way to do something like that. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, or farting in a dog man's face to like confuse his ultimate sense of smell. Like, some of these things are so stupid and like they to the outside, but it's just like they work and they are the way that he chooses to solve problems. It's just like when you're a kid reading that, it's like that's hilarious and it worked. Wow, like that's insane. Like early Naruto has that magic so often where it's just like, oh, okay, this guy can handle 12 shadow clones because he's stronger than Mizuki, but if they're all naked women, like he's not going to be able to deal with that because he's clearly established pervert. It's just like all of these like hilarious solutions to problems, which I feel like the other two, they don't really have that. Like Luffy and Ichigo don't have that like insane out of the box stupid ass problem solving that I think makes early Naruto such a great character, because it's just like you get so confused between badass and absolutely hilarious like when he does shit like that, and that's what I appreciate about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also one element that always stuck out to me is that how good Naruto is when he applies himself, when he actually like properly puts his mind to something and is willing to put the work in. Because like one thing that's very like brought up a lot in like the first couple of arcs is like, oh, he doesn't try as hard as he pretends he does, but when he actually puts his mind to something and stops whining, he becomes incredibly good both as a shinobi and also as like a person in his like in like his environment. And I always thought that that was super inspiring, like the idea that he's kind of seen as this dumb kid that can't do much and that is supposed to get bullied by everyone, that it's really just a difference of actually like putting your mind to something and genuinely committing to trying, even if it sometimes looks like it's fruitless. And it gets kind of memed on a bit that late Naruto is very much, I will not give up and that will solve everything. But at the start, that really felt like something important, like something meaningful.
Yeah, and it worked. You know what I mean? Like not just for him, but it worked for the story. Like it was the right thing to do for him in a lot of times, and he was so conditioned to just quitting when things got hard that I think that like I wouldn't bat an eye if that became his conditioned response to everything, was just like, nah, I'm just gonna keep doing it. I'll just keep trying.
Yeah, and I just think it was such as Zen said, it was such a great message to send to kids at the time. And it combined that message with a genuinely interesting plot. Like, I rewatched all of part 1 recently, and even jaded old me was entertained from start to finish knowing the story. Like, it's a fun ride where you go and meet all these crazy characters who can do genuinely cool things, and it ends with a really cool climax where it's like Naruto is sent on this, big mission to retrieve Sasuke, and he's completely isolated from all adults that could help him. And so he's just with his friends, and at the end just alone, and he has to apply himself. He has, as he said, to, not quit and to try and to make it work. And then of course that's the one time he fails, the one time where it matters, and then he has to come back up from failure. And it's such a good like progression throughout like part 1 and culminating like the Sasuke mission. Like I remember watching.
It's just peak. Like
Yeah,
it's just so good. Like it's peak shonen, dude. Like I don't know. Like everyone can relate to Naruto. I don't care. I don't care. Like anyone who says they can is lying. It's just there's something about him early on that everyone can get something out of. I don't think that there are many Shonen Jump characters like that, like protagonists, even though a lot of them are made to be templates, for the reader. I think Naruto, early Naruto embodies that the best, where it's just like if you've been picked on even just a little bit, you can probably relate to Naruto.
Right,
If
and
you
I mean
don't have
it's more than
parents,
just
you can
like
probably relate to Naruto.
just dealing with, oh, he gets bullied at school or whatever. Like
Yeah,
everybody at some point deals with feelings of inadequacy, and they deal with it in ways
exactly.
that are specific and unique to them, and those ways aren't always necessarily healthy or good.
Yeah, or even like even somebody who doesn't get bullied at school, does well in class, but doesn't get attention at home, who acts out in school. Like even that person could get something from Naruto.
Right.
Or, even someone whose life is totally perfect, in whatever sense that entails, like could still find something in him, like, well, maybe I don't feel like I'm good enough, or maybe I don't feel like I apply myself enough, or anything like that. I feel like there's so much to take from him, and even from just like that basic first chapter of the series. There's so much of Naruto in there that you find something to latch onto.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think it helps that, even when Naruto is being a little shit, he is actually kind of likable because of the qualities that we've mentioned. Like, even when he's being annoying and, like, kind of a jerk, I can still always come back and be like, no, that's my guy. He's being dumb
Yeah.
right now, but he's gonna go back to being really cool in a second because that's kind of how it is with him. And even if you don't relate to Naruto himself, there's plenty of other characters in Naruto that touch upon like the other corners of feelings of inadequacy or of feelings of underperforming that you can always attach yourself to. Like now, I kind of made a 180 and I found myself relating a lot to Shikamaru, which is a character that as a kid I barely cared about, but now as an adult, like his deal about trying to take responsibility and trying to grow into that responsibility really hit like
He's always
around this
been my
time.
goat. He's always been one of my favorites.
Damn, so I was just playing catch up.
Dude, I look, not everyone can relate to the really smart guy with a 200 IQ who's lazy. Like, no, not everyone can relate to that, Oceans. It's a rare thing. So, I mean,
Well, this
you
this
know,
time I've been graced
it's
with
not for
understanding
everybody
it.
right off the bat. Yeah, and I feel like that's another thing that I do really appreciate. And I mean, will as we go through, I'll kind of keep nailing this point in. But I feel like all three of these series, like whether or not they're utilized in a way that I would love, each series has side characters that I absolutely like. Utilization aside, right? It's just who they are and how they act and what they do. It is I love I there's I can I'd run out of fingers trying to count it, how many Naruto characters I just genuinely enjoy seeing on screen. Like Shikamaru is one of them. I really like Neji. I guess some people don't, but I like Neji. I like Lee. I like um, all the Jonin, I think is what they're called. The
Mhm.
the, the
The grown
teachers. Like,
ups, yeah.
yeah, there are just so many characters who are just fucking fantastic, and
Mhm.
I feel like that drives home that like all of part one is so enjoyable because it doesn't matter who's on screen. Like there are definitely anime that I watch where I'm like, the main character's not on screen, so right now I'm barely invested. I don't care about what's going on right now. But
Mhm.
Naruto is definitely not one of those. It's like whoever is there, I'm having a good time. Like one striking example is where none of the kids are anywhere to be found, and it's just like the four Jonin or three Jonin, however many there are, fighting Tachi like at that pond or whatever near the water,
Mhm.
and they're all just getting bodied by him, and it's just like no idea what's going on. When I was a kid, no fucking clue what's going on, but I am having a great time because this is so cool. I like all these people. That chick's got red eyes, and now he's got red eyes, and everyone's doing stuff. Like that stuff in early Naruto is so great for me.
Mhm.
Like just everything, something is always happening, and it's always interesting. There's never like boring spots. I know you mentioned like the Fine Tsunade arc. Like I
Mhm.
actually enjoy that. I actually enjoy that arc.
Yeah, I think maybe I enjoyed it more as a kid, but definitely now revisiting it, I did like it almost killed my rewatch because it was just like the subject matter was interesting, but it actually is the only Naruto arc where I would say it genuinely drags for too much, aside maybe
Well,
like parts of the shooting exams. But yeah.
yeah, no, I think I agree with that. But I think that's a consequence of like the rest of part one being so fucking fire, like so good.
Uh-huh.
and like stuff is always happening and it's always crazy. And I
Mhm.
feel like the Tsunade arc is like the first time that it genuinely stops to like a screeching halt just so he can learn how to do the Sengon and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And at the end, of course, it picks up there, but that's still like, I don't even know chapters or episodes, how many, but it's like a big gap of time where, in air quotes, nothing is happening, you know? So,
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily that nothing's happening. It's just that what I found was that a lot of what was happening, you didn't it wasn't communicated quite well, like why it matters. Like a
right.
lot of that arc is the arc is around 15, 20 episodes, if I remember correctly, like the Tsunade portion of the arc, ignoring the Itachi part. And a lot of that is very much just Naruto like trying to Rasengan multiple times and Tsunade going like back and forth about you know, will I join Orochimaru? Will I heal his arms to see my husband back? Which, like, in isolation are cool concepts, but they do overstay their welcome, in my opinion. But I mean, you're also right. When you have a Fuego Part one arc had to be the most boring. That's just kind of
Yeah.
Yeah,
how
no
it
matter
works.
how good it is, something has to be the most boring of
But
them all.
Yeah.
here is my ultimate takeaway from part one, my peak, my magnum opus, the greatest piece of the anime manga of part one, and that is the Land of Waves.
Yes.
The Land of Waves, like, because I don't want to get stuck in the mud on talking about what we all agree is probably the lamest arc in part one, but the Land of Waves is just
Yeah, I think that Naruto could
it's
have
just
been a one-shot series, or not like a one-shot, but just like a short story about just the Land of Waves, and I would still think it was one of the best things that Shonen has made, like ever.
like
Yeah.
it is unfair to everything else that was going on at that time in the magazine. It was unfair for Land of Waves to exist. Like, that was the first place I went when I got my weekly Shonen Jumps, like, in the mail. Like, that was the first place I went, was what is going on in Naruto. That
Mhm.
was it's so good. Like, I gotta pull myself in, otherwise I'm gonna start gushing. But like, it's immense.
Yeah, and it's like it's insane because I can't think of another like shonen manga that I've read that had a first arc that was like that immediately captivating. Like Land of Waves in the anime is barely 20 episodes. Like it's more like 17 episodes. And it's so good. It's a complete banger. And as Zen mentioned, the short story, I genuinely believe Kishimoto could have had a great career as a short story writer because whenever he has like these short condensed segments of something, they are great. Like, you know, the
Most
Land of
of part
Waves,
one.
yeah, most of part one, Land of Waves, like the one like fight where Choji gets to do something in part one, that is so good. And it's such a shame that Choji never gets to that level again. But man, like when Kishimoto does those short, hard-hitting narratives, he is really good at it in part one. So yeah, Land of Waves was amazing, and like,
Well, I think that he fell into, and I'm like, I'm not trying to tear down the other two, but like, I feel like he fell into, he did a very good job of avoiding, and then subsequently fell into the trap that the other two authors that we're gonna eventually talk about fall into a lot, which is like arcs have to go on forever and a lot of stuff has to happen, and therefore like the arc eventually overstays its welcome. I feel like there are a few examples of that in One Piece and in Bleach, at least for me personally, and that's what like a majority of part 2 of Naruto feels like for me. It's like, oh my god, we're still here, like,
mm,
wrap it up. Like, everyone talks about the war arc. I can't even tell you when the war starts. Like,
mm-hmm,
because I feel like it starts about 5 times. Like,
Yeah.
and ends about twice. Like, it is so long. It feels so long. I remember
yeah,
talking to people when Naruto was about to end, and I said like, "Oh, Naruto's ending," and people would be like, "Oh, are they still doing that war thing?" And I was like,
mm-hmm.
"Oh my god, it's not that long, is it?" Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. The war arc. actually takes up about a third of the full Naruto manga. It's ridiculous.
Good God.
That's just and like for me that's just too much. You know what I mean? Like again, jumping ahead, sorry, but Marineford is 30 chapters. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's the big war arc of One Piece, at least right now. Like that shit is 30 chapters. All the post-war shit is like 17 chapters. It's not that long. You know what I mean? And I feel like even Bleach, like the 1,000-year Blood War, it wasn't the 1,000-chapter Blood War. It was just like a blood war that went along, went on for a little bit and then it stopped. Like we ended it. You know what I mean? So it's just, I don't know.
Like,
I don't know what the fuck happened with.
I mean, it's funny to bring up Marineford, because Marineford is actually a good example of a good war arc, because it's like it's like all the build up for the war arc has happened in the background of other arcs, so that when the war arc happens, it can immediately get to the pussy part. It can immediately get to like the good stuff. Whereas with the Naruto war arc, it feels very much like half of the shit the war arc needs to work has not been like properly established or not properly been developed to a point where you can actually have the war. So half of the war just feels like catching up to making a proper war arc, and then it gets started.
Exactly.
Yeah, it does.
And then there's like 4 villains. Like
yeah.
I think Naruto
like,
is always at its best in a smaller scale. I think that the more the Naruto world expands, the more and more cluttered it becomes, and the less and less effective, maybe even by comparison to the other two that we're going to talk about here, the less effective that Kishimoto becomes at juggling all these factors. Because early Naruto,
I just don't know if he's built for it.
That may be the case. Maybe it's just not, his style. But early Naruto is very subdued. Even like we expand the roster to like the Konoha 11 or whatever it is, and it's still like, oh, now there's 5 characters doing things instead of 3. Like it's still condensed and small, and the character drama feels a lot more believable. I have a lot easier time handling Naruto, like, I'm going to bring Sasuke back. Oh, I didn't. Now I have to deal with the emotional fallout from that. Then the Shippuden's entire, like, yeah, my buddy is Osama bin Laden. Do something. And, like, that's the whole second half of it. And it's like, it starts to become unrealistic because it maybe because the world of consequence for it becomes so large that the series starts to kind of buckle under itself.
Well, I think it really becomes a question of like when you say believable, like that's exactly it. Like the level of stuff that, oh my god, am I really gonna invoke fucking Star Wars? Okay. Like in the end of the sequel trilogy, like the new Disney joints, like what Kylo Ren, like the amount of stuff that man had done, you know what I mean? Or you know what? Screw it. Fuck those movies. Darth Vader. We're talking about Darth Vader. I'm going back to safer ground. Like the amount of like messed up stuff that Darth Vader had done, like it's insane. Like he's literally space Hitler. He's killed a ton of people, messed up a bunch of stuff, and at the very end of his story, he gets redeemed. But it's not like, okay, well, I'm glad we made up, Dad. Let's go home. It's I'm dead because the writers realize that I cannot go back to Endor and face all of the people that I have just fascistically tortured for the past 10 years. Like, you can't, you know what I mean? You can't do it. And when you say believability, like you look at Naruto and it's like, okay, well, like, let's lay out what Sasuke's done. He's done a lot of bad shit. It's not like he can come home after that, you know what I mean? And
yeah, but I mean, this is the same guy that said that Obito was the coolest guy in the world after becoming literal ninja Hitler.
And it's just like, like, you know what I mean? And this is the guy, and this is what bugs me is like Naruto's rage of like Zabuza cutting through Haku, or all of these different examples of like, or how Gaara treats his brother and sister, like all of these things that frustrate Naruto in part 1 seem like diametrically opposed to his reaction to Obito and his willingness to save Sasuke at the very end. His persistence. It's just all of these things that would not like totally forsake Sasuke in his mind, but like, okay, I'm literally gonna just murder you and then drag you back if I have to. Like that eventually comes out, but it always feels half-hearted because we know Naruto is not gonna take that step.
Hmm. Yeah. Also, like one thing that always took me out about the ending of Naruto is the fact that Orochimaru gets off scot-free.
Oh my
When
God, you're right.
he,
I completely forgot that nothing bad happens to him. He just
he
has a kid that
literally,
goes to school.
yeah, like the worst that happens to him is that he has a bodyguard that looks that he doesn't that looks to it that he doesn't do any more fucked up shit.
He
Which
killed
like
several Kage.
he killed the Kage. He abducted kids and tortured them for his experiments while he was still in Konoha. Like it
And
feels
he was
very
the big bad
yeah
originally. Like
yeah
he was the big bad.
Like,
I
he didn't
mean,
just kill the third Hokage, he killed one of the Kazekage too.
yep. And it's like, you know, again, going back to part one and seeing people say like, "Oh, Orochimaru, you are destined to suffer for your misdeeds," and it's like, he has a kid that goes to primary school now,
yeah.
and he has, he even gets like his own laboratory and shit. It's like,
Well, I mean, this goes back to what Zen was saying about scale. Is I think it got to a certain point where we wanted the stakes to keep going up. Like Kishimoto wanted to keep raising the stakes, and he just didn't know how to do that with Orochimaru, so he just threw him aside. Like that's literally what it feels like. Like at the end of the Chunin exams, like Orochimaru doesn't have his hands. He goes, he gets him back from Tsunade. There's that whole big arc. He gets Sasuke to literally leave the village, and then even in the beginning of Shippuden, they're like, "Oh my gosh, like Sasuke, come back! No, I'm here with Orochimaru." Naruto goes all out against Orochimaru in the forest or whatever, and it's like all of that. Like I would have been convinced that he was like the main bad guy of the series, and then he just kind of fucks off. Like he just vanishes.
I don't remember a
yeah,
single
Kabuto
thing that
becomes
Orochimaru did after he got pasted by Fox Naruto in the woods.
Kabuto like swallows him or something like
Well, I
that,
know
and
that like he
becomes
tries to take over Sasuke because he's bedridden again because Orochimaru spends like 90% of the series bedridden. And then
yeah.
Sasuke's like, I don't think so. And then like he's living inside Sasuke's neck tattoo for a bit. And then he comes back out and he's like, this is it. This is my takeover moment. And then Itachi's like, shut up, get out. We're beyond you. We're moving on to Madara Madara now. Get out of the way.
yeah, and then it's Kabuto, and then it's Obito, then it's Madara, then it's Obito again, then it's Madara again, then it's Kaguya, and it's just like pick a villain, pick one. Like this is the same arc. This
Yeah,
isn't
even
multiple arcs.
Kabuto
This is the
feels
same
almost
arc.
superfluous by the time he becomes relevant. Like, he starts doing shit, and then Itachi's just like, all right, I gotta deal with this. Hang on, give me a minute. I have to go
Yeah,
deal with
and
this
it's just,
fucker, and then I'll move on to whatever else you want to talk about. Like,
and I think for a while I was like, the war arc is not that big of a deal, but it is a third of the series, so I feel like it is that big of a deal. But also, part one of Naruto, and even up until like the beginning of the war arc, I was on board.
Oh yeah, definitely.
100%. I actually do enjoy a lot of Shippuden, and I enjoy the war arc for like the same reason I enjoy the 1,000 Year Blood War. Like we're at the end of the line, and shit is just crazy. Like everybody's doing crazy shit. Shit is blowing up. People are kicking each other through giant trees. It's great. Everything's popping off. Like that's what I like about the war arc, but I couldn't tell you a damn thing that was going on, to be honest.
yeah, well, like,
It's
I
just-
think there's something to be said for that, especially in a final arc where it's like, the series is over, like, let's let the audience have fun. Let's let, like, and I think the Thousand Year Blood War also goes too far with it in a lot of places, but I don't think it's necessarily the biggest deal in the whole world. But like in the Thousand Year Blood War, Yhwach doesn't come back, and they're like, okay, do you want to send your kid to the Soul Reaper Academy after this?
right.
Like, he's dead
Yeah.
because he was a horrible
Well,
monster that needed to
Boruto
die.
doesn't exist in my mind. I will never acknowledge Boruto as a thing that happens. As far as I'm concerned, Naruto stopped at the last.
I love you, Neo.
I never. I don't care how cool that clip was of Naruto and Sasuke fighting. I don't care. Boruto's not real. Didn't happen. Not real. Fiction. We made it up.
That's fair.
Done.
And I
No.
think especially for the context of this discussion, that's super fair because we are talking about Boruto is the legacy, remora on the fin of the big three series that is Naruto.
Yeah,
It's
and
not
like
part of it.
what I think the important takeaway for Naruto is that the highs are the highest the magazine has ever gone to a point. I mean, I obviously have a stronger feeling about a certain series we'll talk about next, but like Land of the Waves, 10 out of 10, fucking banger. Sasuke Retrieval, 10 out of 10, fucking banger. Shonen Exams, 8.5 out of 10, really good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, pretty good, pretty loud. Maybe not a huge bang, but pretty loud. Like, there are so many good pieces of Naruto that I think that unfairly, the bad pieces get magnified more than they're actually worth.
Yeah,
Our little
yeah, I
online
would say I
Twitter
probably
bubble.
agree with that. I think that
Like, I
Naruto
don't
just
see
loses
people talking
itself
about Land of the
more
Waves.
than the other series do, maybe. If I don't know if that sounds fair or not, but like I think that late Naruto is the most drastic departure from early Naruto in comparison to the other series, where a lot of late
Yeah.
Naruto feels unrecognizable to like a lot of what made early Naruto feel so great.
I mean, in the beginning, he can just make a bunch of clones of himself and beat people up a bit, and at the end, people are talking about him being able to destroy a planet. You know what I mean? So it's just, and that's like a normal power scaling progression. I understand, right? But in any other series where the power jump is that drastic, there's precedent, or there's like a natural progression, not just like a giant spike. Like the precedent, again, jumping out of our bubble here, but like Toriko is like, okay, well, that planet's already giant, right? So being able to destroy a continent is basically planetary, or being able to punch a giant wall that's reinforced with 80 steel beams and the tears of eternal dragon that shits watermelons is like precedent. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of established in that world, or, but the power jump here is like, it would be like in My Hero Academia, the guy that could make explosions with his hands all like 2 years later could fucking annihilate an entire countryside just by snapping his fingers. Like it just doesn't make sense. It's so drastic. I get that it's like, the demons or whatever, everybody gets stronger and all that stuff, but like you're telling me Guy could have just turned on the 8 gates at any point, like, or the 7th gate at any point, like, and could have just ended the Chunin Exams conflict right there by going 7 gates? Like, is that what you're telling me? I don't know.
Yeah, and it feels
Sure,
especially weird. I
honestly.
think with Kakashi is the biggest issue with that. He fought Zabuza for like 7 minutes and was bedridden for a week. And then they were just like, "Oh, hey, he has 2 Mangekyo Sharingan in the final arc." Like,
okay, but that one is so like out of line that every other Naruto piece of media that isn't the manga has tried to change that. Like, because the explanation for how he gets the double Mangekyo is so like out of nowhere. Like, it's like literally Obito infuses his spirit as he's dying into Kakashi, and it activates a second Mangekyo in him temporarily. And it's like, what?
Well,
And
it's like, he doesn't have them in the last, does he?
yeah, he doesn't. He loses them.
yeah, they go
after-
away
He doesn't
after the
have his
final fight.
Sharingan.
Yeah, he has
Yeah,
2
and
regular eyes.
And that is just, it's just silly. That's what it is. It's just silly. Like, it's just okay, really, like, you know what I mean? And you know what? And I might piss some people off here, but you know who doesn't get any bullshit power-ups or make any dumb excuses for themselves in that final arc out of the 4 of them is Sakura. She shows up with the same dumb punching power that she always did. And like, nobody, if she had gotten like a butterfly wing power from like Tsunade or some shit like that, like everyone would have been mad as fuck. But these 3 get their special little teardrop power-ups at the very end of the line, and no one has a problem with it. I just think it's so silly. It just comes out of nowhere. It just feels so random for Kakashi all of a sudden to get that strong, and then these two to get their little tattoos that give them like the powers of literal gods.
Yeah.
Just
Like,
funny.
no, the thing that always just I think solidifies Kakashi's thing is like the dumbest one is the fact that Bandai Namco, when they were doing the Storm games, looked at it and was like, "That's fucking stupid. We're changing that." Like,
And good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a good, like good. You know what I mean? Like it's silly. Like
yeah, like
and
I don't.
it's the power. The drain is another thing to be spoken for as well. I mean, this is a guy whose body is rejecting the eye, and that's why it makes sense in the Zabuza arc that he can't handle it the way that somebody genetically born to handle the eye can handle the eye, right?
Mhm.
It destroys him when he uses it. Like that made sense, and then it just stops. Like it just stops affecting him. Like he gets used to it, I guess, or some shit like that. I don't know. He doesn't use
Yeah.
it that much in part one afterward.
Yeah, it's like it. Naruto is a great example of a series where it introduces powers with definitive drawbacks, and then after a while, it just stops showing the drawbacks and it just assumes that either,
The
you know,
gates.
yeah, like we just accept that everyone's gotten over it, or we accept that all the drawbacks are happening off screen, which like both is not very satisfying, which
Like
is unfortunate.
Lee literally used the gates for like 3 minutes and was crippled. I mean, I know Gara messed him up too, but he was basically crippled at the end of that. Like his legs didn't work, his arms didn't work. He was beat to hell, like out of the fight, out of the story, right? And then like in part two, he's just he just turns it on.
Mhm.
He's just having a go at it. Like hey, I'm six gates now. Like let's go. Like nothing bad, nothing. My knees are fine. They don't hurt.
I have trained my bones and they don't
Yeah.
break as easily.
My
bones are stronger than
now.
ever.
Yeah, I had a bunch of milk. Like I don't know. It's just shit like that is and you know what? I'm trying to be positive. At the end of the day, I don't care about any of that shit. Still fucking love Naruto.
Oh yeah,
And that
Naruto's
is
still
the
great.
magic of the series. That's the magic. Is all of that shit bothers me if I think about it for more than about 5 seconds. And if I don't think about it, I am having a great time.
Mm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think
Because the
also
narrative
like
is still strong, right?
Mhm.
I don't think I've never thought the power system was anything to write home about. So like, the narrative is still good. The characters are still good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like, I talk a lot about work because it's just funny to slander shit, but like the work it can be summarized as the part where Naruto peaks really high but dips very low. But like if you can ignore the dips, if you can just be like, it's just a series being stupid right now, whatever, you're still having a good time for the most part. If
Oh
you
yeah,
if you don't try to look at it as like one giant narrative and it's just like, oh, let's see who they're fighting this week. Like
like
it's a lot of fun, yeah.
Guy activating the eighth gate is like on the level of, for me personally, is on the level of like Ichigo's first Bankai or like the first Gear 2 in One Piece. Like it was something that I had always wanted to see. I guess it's even better because it had been super hyped up the whole series. You know what I mean? And it was something I
Mhm.
had always wanted to see, and I finally got to see it, and it did not disappoint. And there are not many things that have their seeds planted that early in a piece of media that pay off that beautifully. I mean, obviously he didn't kill him, which I would have preferred.
Mhm.
Um, like for him to actually take out Madara, I think been the coolest thing ever because clearly so had another villain in the pocket.
Mhm.
But he messes that dude up, and if you care about little power scaling things, like Madara looks at him and says, "You are the strongest person I have ever fought," and I made my wiener move when I was reading that shit weekly. Like that was incredible to read. Like, and I can reconcile everything that happened in the war arc that I don't like with that one moment. And I think that is enough for me to like say, well, that is the peak for me of Shippuden.
War Arc is a definitive wiener twitch out of 10, I see.
Dude, hey, Come on, man. It
I
is a
agree.
8 out of
All right,
10.
all right. That's
I
probably a
do
good
agree.
place to cut Naruto because that we're at 45 minutes in already, and we've only done
Oh.
one. So
All
let's
right.
jump into number 2, which we're gonna go into One Piece second. So go ahead, Mr. One Piece.
Fuck, man. One Piece. Pretty good. So just to go along with how Ocean's like introduced Naruto, I have a very for how much I love One Piece, I don't think I have like a similar journey that I did with Naruto. Like I remember around the same time that I started watching Naruto, it was like there's this other manga in your weekly Shonen Jumps about like a rubber boy who I guess is a pirate maybe, and he's fighting some dude made of sand or whatever. I don't remember what the hell was going on weekly when I was reading it. And I had no idea what the fuck it was about, and I thought it was dumb, so I never looked. And then like a couple years later, uh, I got like some fucking game from Japan on the GameCube, which was basically like Super Smash Brothers, but with Naruto, One Piece, and Dragon Ball characters. And I was like, these guys are kind of fun. Maybe I'll check this out. And then I started watching it, and it was just unlike anything I had ever at that point. I mean, just the sense of adventure, the world, the characters. I was so sold immediately, and this is something that we'll definitely have to harp on because I feel like this is like One Piece fans have no fucking idea how to get people to read or watch their series, and this is the part that frustrates me is like there was no point that I started watching it where I was never not sold. Right, the first episode I was on board, and I know that doesn't happen for everybody, but like this whole like oh just watch until Arlong Park and like you'll get it. You know, just watch 30 episodes of something you're lukewarm on, and then you'll suddenly understand why it's good. I never had that, so I think that the beginning of One Piece is rough looking back, but like starting out for the first time when I was that right age, I think that there was nothing like it at that point. And at that point, I had already experienced Naruto, Bleach. I had already experienced Dragon Ball, Rurouni Kenshin, Yu Yu Hakusho, even though not that much of Yu Yu Hakusho and like all of these different things and One Piece came along and I was just blown away and I think that I don't know if that part gets enough credit because I feel like at least the discourse I see is always about like oh the narrative or the world building or the blah, 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 blah. But I think that just that romance like that sense of just adventure and it's just goofy and that is such a underrated aspect of it. It's just what initially drew me in. And then it's been, fucking 1,000 chapters of Stockholm at this point. I mean, I've just been kind of dragging my ass, in the beginning, I was running alongside Luffy, fucking dragging me face first across this giant ocean that he's going through. Somewhere along the way, the shit went off the rails. I don't mean in a bad way, but like when I started watching it, you could not have told me that if you had told me like, oh, it's gonna be 1,000 chapters and eventually the bad guy's gonna be like a giant dragon. And there's gonna be like 80 fucking 9 million named characters with backstories and information about them. Like I would have told you were insane because it was just a goofy little rubber guy beating up clowns and people with knives for hands. Like it's nothing like it. So in a sense, it is also recognized. But One Piece is really fucking good. Like just that's just my takeaway. Like just natural. I don't have like a thesis about it or anything like that. But I think that a lot of people do themselves a disservice talking about it. And I think that is a really frustrating aspect of being in a sea of like hype beasts, at least in the community that, well, I'm not a part of any community, but the One Piece people on Twitter, it's these 5 arcs are GOAT, and I'm not going to talk about anything. Frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I think I got into One Piece when what was it? I think it took a holiday to Italy at the time, and I needed something to read in the in the bus to Italy. And I just decided, you know what? I'm just gonna do it. Like, it's been looming. It's the thing everyone always recommends. It's the thing I've been hearing about for years. Because at that point, I was already 20, so I was already well into adulthood.
Yeah.
And I just decided, you know what? I'm not getting around it. Like, I keep seeing it everywhere, and there are parts of it that interest me. Let me give it a shot. And I did that 4 times until it actually stuck. Because and the first 3 times I always failed at Syrup Village because I just could not take that arc.
Yeah, because you're a stupid moron. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, for sure.
I love
I
you
hear
too,
you.
Neo. But the thing is, I am a stupid moron because I can't actually, like, I couldn't write out what about Syrup Village gave me such difficulties. Like, I don't hate Usopp, although he's
Right.
not among my favorites. And I don't think the arc is like structurally any like less sound than other arcs that I like. It's just something about that arc, like that arc's vibe or whatever, didn't jig with me at all. So I ended up dropping
Vibes are
it.
terrible.
The
This man's vibes are terrible.
The vibes are not good.
The vibometer is not happy. But like, yeah, so I like tried reading through that, and I always stopped there, and I don't think I ever like hard dropped it. I never like stopped reading. I was like, I'm never reading this again. It was always like, oh, I'm not super into this. Let me take a break, and then that break lasted for like 6 months, and then I had to start over. But once I got past Syrup Village, I think the first time it like really clicked in my brain was Sanji's arc, like Barati, just because like Red Leg Zeph and that whole flashback kind of gave me the first taste of those like, classic One Piece flashback reinforcements that I had heard about as well. And I was like, okay, I'm in. And
so
then
before we zoom too far ahead, I do have to say, and I will fight this battle like until the end of time. I want you to understand. I will go to my grave fighting this battle. Syrup Village is not only a perfect arc, it is the quintessential One Piece arc. Like, and we can talk about this later, like you and I, if you want, Oceans. But I will say that, and I'm just gonna leave it, and we can keep going. Like, just keep going, because I strongly fucking believe. And there are like One Piece fans who are like rabid about the series who disagree with me, and they're all idiots. Anyway, go ahead.
As I told you, like, I couldn't construct an argument as to why it took me so long. Because even looking back on it, it's not an offensive arc. It's just an arc I struggle with. But yeah, so like after Barati, you had Arlong Park, which honestly I kind of like. It kind of passed through me. Like, I can't remember having super strong feelings about it. Though when I watched a TV special like episode where it's like reanimated and shit on it, it was really good. I liked it. But then Alabasta hit. And Alabasta was when I got properly invested. Like, I love Crocodile. He's probably still one of my favorite, like, just designs in One Piece.
So when you say Alabasta, you mean like when they are in Alabasta and the shit that's happening in Alabasta? I mean like that whole
like around once they arrive on the continent of Alabasta, and it's they're in the desert. Like, I think I like Crocodile
because like Whiskey Peak and like Little Garden, like all that shit gets kind of mixed into Alabasta sometimes. Like, people just say like that's all Alabasta. Episode 60 to episode 130 is technically all Alabasta.
Yeah, like Whiskey.
Confusing.
Yeah, like Whiskey Peak and Little Garden. I didn't have strong feelings about them at the time, but looking back, I'm just happy that they led to Alabasta because I had such a blast once they arrive in the desert.
Right. I mean, they're short and inoffensive, and like each one is like a volume or 2 at most. When Alabasta is 5.
Yeah, like I liked Alabasta enough to actually rewatch all of it in the anime after I had read it. Because I was just like, I need to see more of this. I want to see and hear like Crocodile. I want to see the fight. I want to watch Luffy punch Vivi and tell her we're pirates. Violence is kind of just what we do, and you can't expect for this to go off smoothly without violence. Because that was also like the first time Luffy really clicked with me. Because before that, I was like, oh, he's goofy little rubber boy. Like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm kind of on board. But there, it was like, okay, he's a goofy little rubber boy, but he also has a certain understanding of his role in the world, and that's cool.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, so I had fun with One Piece during my tenure. Like Alabasta definitely remained the peak for me, but
Mhm.
I read up to Dressrosa before I eventually kind of got tired of it. But I was entertained for most of it. My like my tiredness of it mostly came from like things that Oda does in all of his arcs, just kind of building up. Like I got kind of tired of the flashbacks and the backstories. Even 700 chapters in, I couldn't fall in love with the art style, and that kind of stopped me a bit in my tracks.
Yeah,
And
we'll talk about that a little bit for sure.
for sure.
I definitely agree with
And then
you on that.
once I hit like Dressrosa and I realized that this was going to be like a 100 chapter arc in like this place that I honestly couldn't bring myself to really get too invested in. Again, it's been a while, so I can't really tell you why, but yeah, at that point I was like, okay, I've had enough for now. And it's always like been with the looming idea of I will pick it back up once I know it's ending and I can like actually go at this with the mind of this is not like a commitment of multiple years where it's like, okay, I'm gonna catch up now and I'm gonna wait until Oda finishes the story in 2025 or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of how I stand with One Piece. Like I had fun with it. I rewatched some of the key scenes in the anime as well, like especially Eni's lobby. I rewatched all of the fights there just because I wanted to see them animated, which is super good. Um, I love I love Chopper's transformation there. It's so creepy and cool.
Oh, it's fantastic, and then it gets absolutely ruined. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So my takeaway with One Piece is I wish I could love it as much as I see other people love it, because the idea of getting obsessed with something that has that much content to it, I love that idea, but I just couldn't really get into it because maybe
Well, I
it
mean,
just
and
isn't for me.
jumping out of like the anime manga world for a second, like next to Naruto, I think One Piece has like the best lineup of video games, at least recently. Like, I fucking love Pirate Warriors. Burning Blood was good enough, for like a 3D mid. Like, you're not gonna top Storm, so don't
Mm-hmm.
try, which is what
Mm-hmm.
Burning Blood did. Good, like even the open world one was kind of janky, but it was still enjoyable. Like in terms of it, enveloping you in that world and letting you feel like Batman, it
Mm-hmm.
did its job. You know what I mean? So I think that like that's another important thing is like media. Naruto and One Piece have great games, Dragon Ball has great games, and then
Mm-hmm.
we'll talk about Bleach.
Yeah, like I think
But
I think Pirate Warriors 3 might be the only game that's ever compelled me to take my Switch and play it on my bed, because I'm very much a like, play on my chair or my sofa and then go to bed and do something else. But Pirate Warriors, I was just like, I have to grind through these levels a bit. I need to play as what was his name, Kizaru, and shoot some cool lasers and shit, because that was
Pirate
cool.
War Pirate Warriors is great. Anyway, Zen, how do you feel about One Piece, buddy?
I don't have too much history with One Piece, mostly because, for me, at least in a series, I need to vibe really hard with the main character for me to start getting into it, and Luffy is probably my least favorite character in One Piece. Not to say that I don't like One Piece characters, because there's a lot that I do like. I really
Mhm.
like Zoro, I like Sanji, I like Nami. I like a decent amount of the cast, but it's very difficult for me to vibe with Luffy, so that kind of takes me out of it. Except for like every now and again he does something cool, and I'm like, shit, that was cool. But he doesn't hit with
Well,
me on
I'm
a
curious,
consistent
what
basis.
what what about it for him doesn't hit with you? What doesn't track?
I don't know. I don't particularly love the goofiness of the art style, especially with the way that he's drawn a lot of the time. Even his power ups tend to look
Mhm.
kind of dope, like dopey and kind of dumb. I'm not a huge fan of like I'm the big idiot meat eater character, and like Goku just manages to just barely skirt that for me. That he just gets
Right.
around it. And
Well,
I
he's not
think
even
it's
your
just
favorite Dragon Ball character, is he?
he actually is.
Oh, is he?
He
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
He is.
Never mind
He
then.
just skirts that for me, and I think it's because like it feels like Luffy's default state, whereas with Goku it feels like a gag. and when Luffy gets serious and like more mature, it feels like very almost not out of character, but it feels like that's supposed to be a special moment for him. Whereas like
Yeah, and
90% of the
I would
time
agree
he's
with
kind
that.
of a doofy
Yeah,
dummy. But
I
the
would agree
parts where
with
he
that. I
gets
don't see it as a
serious,
bad thing, but I agree.
yeah, the part where he gets serious, I like a lot. Like my most recent attempt to reread it, I still have not gotten all the way through it. It's a lot, but my most recent attempt, Arlong Park, hit really hard. A lot of it was Nami carrying it, but the moment of Luffy just dropping all of that shit and not being like a giddy dweeb in jorts and flip flops and like actually
Mhm.
taking shit seriously because it's serious shit was really good. Um, and I feel like I would like him a lot more if more of his character was like if the you know how I'm trying to explain this in a way that makes sense. You know how a certain an anime trope will be a character that's like really doofy and silly, but you can tell it's kind of a front and it's not really how they
Right.
are. Luffy does not exude that energy at all to me, which is fine. I'm
Well,
not
because he's
necessarily saying it's
not.
a
Yeah,
con.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's like a negative thing for him, but for me, it's just it doesn't hit. I can't do but so much doofiness. It needs to be offset more often than it is, and I think that really
Yeah,
hurts
and
Luffy for me.
what I think Oda does well is I think that he never like he's definitely aware of it. It's definitely intentional he is, but I think what he's really good at is putting Luffy in situations where he literally cannot afford to not take shit seriously. And there's been a lot of that throughout the series and a lot more of it recently. Like a good example is Alabasta. Like there is not a lot of Luffy just being a goofy dumbass when shit is starting to heat up in Alabasta. Another good example. Water 7 and Enies Lobby. Like those
Mm.
two arcs kind of back to back. Luffy is he in my opinion he's never been better. I mean just the way that everything happens around him and how he reacts to situations what I want out of him and he even gets a lecture from Zoro about knock it the fuck off. Stop goofing around. Like you are the captain. Like you need to make hard decisions and you need to lead us. Like I'm not going to follow you. Like shit like that. And there are a lot of moments like that I feel like. I mean, basically like the archipelago all the way to I guess really the time skip. Like Luffy cannot afford to be goofy. I mean, there are like goofy moments, but it that kind of juxtaposition flips a little bit where it goes from default state is goofy to default state is a little more serious and kept in check, offset by like goofy moments where we return to that like happy kid. And I think that that shift in character is good, especially and then of course after the time skip it all goes off.
Yeah, like I think one thing that I always liked about Luffy is, or at least for as long as I read One Piece, was the fact that whenever he got serious, I got serious. Like when I saw Luffy like actually take things seriously, I kind of, I tightened my belts, I buttoned my shirt up properly, I sat up straight, and I was like, okay, this is the important part.
I
And
do either you watch Doctor Who?
I do not.
no,
Okay, never mind. I was gonna say like he's very much the same as a character, very laid back and very goofy, ADHD all over the place. Like, and when he gets mad, it's the same thing. It's like, okay, well now shit is now shit is real. Like you know what I
Mhm.
mean? You kind of sit up straight and you're like, all right, like lean forward and let's pay attention because some shit's about to
And see,
happen.
that's interesting
Yeah.
because I don't feel that way about Luffy at all, especially in the early portions. And I think the first time I ever felt that way about him was in Alabasta, when he had to be
Mhm.
the one that kind of gave the reality check a little bit. I started being
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. But like, for example, the early portions of the story, whenever Luffy would get like, oh, he would get serious and get mad. To me, it felt like a little kid like throwing a fit. His getting mad was always accompanied by like, I'm sweating and crying and screaming, and like it never felt like he
I
had a moment of maturity. Whereas like when
I
he was
think
talking to Vivi,
until
and
I
he was like,
think
Vivi, shut up,
I
you're
think
an
I agree
idiot.
with you, and I think I agree with you until Baratier, probably. Like Syrup Village, there's a moment where he lashes out and punches Kuro right in the face because like Kuro's like talking a bunch of shit about Kaya and Usopp and pisses Luffy off, and that's just him getting mad and just hitting somebody. That's not the same level as like the walk to Arlong Park, you know what I mean? But Baratier, like when Zoro gets cut down by Mihawk, like Luffy loses his shit. Like I don't know if you guys remember, but Luffy flips out. Obviously, he doesn't go start beating up Mihawk, but he flies over in such a rush that like he crashes into the hull of the ship and like hurts himself. Like he's in such a rush to get over there, and then him and Zoro have that like really meaningful conversation, you know. And I think that that is a different kind of serious. And then like Don Krieg, who gives a shit? Don Krieg sucked, but like all of that stuff, whatever. And then the walk to Arlong Park is when a lot of people would say like that was the first moment for them when they realized that Luffy was a little more than just a dumbass kid. But for me, it was how maturely he handled what happened.
Yeah, because like I think for me, Luffy is at his most interesting when he's being serious, and when that like seriousness is relayed a bit to like what it means to be a pirate and what it means to like live outside the law in this world. Like I feel like all my favorite moments of Luffy have always been when he like gives those sort of checks. So it's like, hey, we're pirates. This is something we do. We have to be ready to, fight our way through. We have to be ready to be the enemy of the world, or of the
I
world
think
government at least.
I think
So, yeah.
Enies Lobby is the perfect example of that. Honestly,
Yes. Enies Lobby is
if you
great
want
because of it.
you want to talk about a serious pirate who understands the risks and doesn't accepts them and wants to do it anyway. It's just like that shooting the flag down moment is just, he is so serious right there. And that is like, and that's the thing is that's what's so interesting to me is all of the moments that have 2 million views, 20 million views on YouTube and people constantly talk about and all of that shit are these moments where Luffy steps above the expectation of the reader and delivers some insightful words or does some crazy shit that you wouldn't expect from that dumb little kid in the barrel, or like things like that. When he stands up to the strongest living pirate and tells him, shut up, I'm speaking, we're gonna do it my way. Shit like that is very refreshing, and it's the peak. It's peak Luffy. Like he's never better than when he's doing that stuff. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, like I think also what plays into it is how much I think Luffy knows about what's going on. Because one of the problems I had early on, I remember, it always felt like Luffy was kind of coasting through his adventure, not really understanding what they were doing. And I get it's part of like the goofy side of him. And for a while I also bought into it. But I will say I vastly preferred when Luffy's like, serious, aware of his position, when he's aware of what they're doing and he's aware of what's at stake. Like Marineford and Enies Lobby and Alabasta are perfect examples of that. Where he's just like, this is what we need to do. This is what my position is here, and I will go through with it. So yeah, I guess like my biggest complaint about Luffy is just that I couldn't buy into like his central, like neutral position, I suppose.
I think the problem with Luffy for a lot of readers who fall off, like Zen did. Zen, you never made it past out. Yeah.
Was late 200s. I couldn't tell you what happened, but that's where my Shonen Jump app says my last read chapter is.
Okay, so that's probably around.
Hang on, I'll open it up again, and I will look at what's happening.
Probably around Jaya or Skypiea.
Probably, because I know Alabasta ends in like the late hundreds, and Skypiea is right after.
Well, no, Alabasta ends at 213 or 215.
Oh, really? It goes that far? Wow.
There's a big boat. Jesus Christ, what the fuck is going on in this? There's a big slug. Luffy is in the eye of the big slug, and he punches out of it. And what the fuck is going on? Good God. There's like a pyramid.
What's Zoro, the chapter number?
277.
You said a pyramid? That sounds like
Skypiea. You're in Skypiea. Yeah. So, and perfect, because this actually helps me a ton. So I think the problem with Luffy and his relationship to the reader, or the type of reader like Zen, because I think Zen's take on it is totally valid, I don't actually disagree with it at all. The shit that he's talking about just doesn't bother me. I actually like it instead of dislike it. But I think the problem with that aspect of Luffy is that he does not get humbled early enough. And when I say humbled, I mean humbled. I don't mean getting stabbed in the chest by Crocodile. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean like seeing the top of the world, essentially, the top of the power scale, if you will. A lot of series do this really well. Bleach does this insanely well. Naruto, at least at the moment in time that it does this really well, right? When you see Zabuza and Kakashi fighting, it's like, oh my god, these guys are gods. Or Saratobi versus Orochimaru, these guys are gods. You know what I mean? But Luffy comes back from Skypiea. They do like some dumb bullshit on Long Ring, Long Land, whatever. And all of a sudden, Aokiji shows up. This guy's a Navy admiral. Like, he's not fucking around. And he just washes the entire crew. Like, treats them like a joke. Not like no one before, right? Totally fucks up Luffy, and that shakes him to his core. Like, he has to figure out a way to be better than he is. That's when he develops the gears and all of that stuff, and that's when he gets a lot more serious. And then he's immediately thrust into having to make a decision between their adventure and Usopp, right? Spoilers then, obviously.
No,
you know,
feel free.
and then
You're not gonna
right
upset me if you spoil
after
something.
that dramatic confrontation with Usopp, and that emotional clearly suffers from, you know, all of them do, save maybe Zoro, because fucking stone statue. Right after that, okay, Robin's gone now. Fuck you. Like, and then he's got to go do Eni's lobby and all shit. And at the very end of it, like, you know, Zoro basically says, like, we're not playing pirate anymore. This is not a game. This is real. Like, there are real things happening right now. If you want to bring Usopp back, like, you need to do it like a captain and not like he's your buddy. Like, you need to actually make him fucking beg, you know? And Luffy has to make all these tough decisions. He has to get stronger. He has to be more serious. And like, there's not a lot of goofing around in Eni's lobby. I feel like that is all for the better. You know what I mean? If anything, the goofing around isn't even Luffy. It's other characters doing. You know, it's Frankie. It's Sanji. It's whoever. And then Thriller Bark is just, I mean, a whole arc of nothing. But then there's, you know, like nothing in terms of stuff. Like, I love that arc. There's a lot of fun stuff that goes on in there. But the very end of it, all of a sudden, it's not Luffy who has to make the big decision. It's Zoro and Sanji who literally have to save their captain's lives. And like, their relationship with him is so believable. You know, like it all falls together really well. And then there's not enough time to breathe for any of them to fall back into the same East Blue, early Alabasta, goofy shit that is so prevalent, because as soon as they leave Thriller Bark, they're at Shabadaba Archipelago. And that shit obviously gets fucked, and they, you know, then it's Amazon, shit's crazy. Then it's Impel Down, that shit's crazy. Then it's the Marineford and the post-war and all of that shit. And like, he doesn't have time to just be a goofball until, you know, he comes back from the time skip and we all kind of have that soft reset. But even then, everything that's happened in the war arc kind of changes him a little bit. Not a ton, but a little bit.
It's so funny that there's all this stuff that you're talking about. It sounds great to me. But then, you know, you brought up the humbling of his character taking place around after the arc that I was just in.
Yeah, you're so fucking close.
It's 300 chapters in, whereas you know, Naruto
that's what I said. It's a problem.
Yeah, it is, and I think that you put it in very good terms when you compared it to Naruto and Bleach. Whereas Naruto kind of, his initial moment of like, you need to be better, is when he fucks up against those two random ninja right at the beginning of the arc, and he has this little moment of like, all right, I'm gonna be better, and then he sees what be better actually means when Zabuza and Kakashi are like unbelievable, and the best he's able to do is get Zabuza to step slightly to the right, and that's all he's able to do. and that's almost immediately in the beginning. And then with Bleach, you have it happen again with
I think
Ichigo
it's
and
Renji.
Byakuya.
Is what I would say.
Renji a little bit, but he kind of wins in the end by like anime
Well,
troping it of like I'm
wait, but doesn't Renji show up in the human world and watch him?
no, he actually beats Renji. He gets washed by Byakuya.
Okay, that's what it is.
Yeah, so
Somebody
he
shows up and fucks him up.
Renji
Yeah.
and Byakuya both show up, and he fights
Well-
Renji for a little bit, and he manages to win via the shonen bullshit tropes of like I'm not giving up because I'm the hero, and then he goes to finish Renji off, and his sword is broken, and he looks at the sword, he doesn't even realize it's broken, and he looks behind him, and Byakuya is holding his broken sword in his hand, and then he just destroys him and leaves.
Yeah, but I think he does kind of lose against Renji. He just kind of gets up one more time and manages to eke out.
Yeah,
like,
but
a
I mean, he
quick-
doesn't lose against Renji any more than he loses against some other tough enemies. Like he's injured,
Yeah.
but he
No,
he
yeah.
wins the fight.
The Byakuya is the humbling.
Yeah,
like,
Byakuya
absolutely.
puts him in his place.
And I would say that Ichigo gets the raw end of the deal out of the three of these protagonists because Ichigo gets humbled like 5 times before breakfast just in the Soul Society arc. Like
Yes,
it is insane. Like
it happens
it's-
almost constantly.
Yeah, it's Byakuya, it's even Ikaku in a little bit. Then it's Kenpachi, then it's Aizen, then it's, the end credits, for him. Like everything after that is just like, oh my fucking god, I'm not even that hot. I'm like, I'm still, there's still a world of difference between me. But yeah, like the that's the problem. And everybody will tell you, like, I don't think a lot of people would say that Luffy's first humbling is when he fights Aokiji. They're wrong. I mean, they're wrong. I don't care. I'm not argue with your mom. I don't give a shit. Like the crocodile humbling is not as big of a deal as people think it is. It's the same thing that happens with Don Krieg shooting him in the fucking head with a giant bazooka, or it's the same thing, with, I don't know, whatever happens in Drum Island. It's the same thing in Logetown where he fights Smoker and realizes he can't hit him. Like, none of that matters because Aokiji literally made him fear for his life.
Well, right. There's a difference between losing and a humbling moment, where you can
and
lose a fight
realizing
and
that
it's not the same thing.
Yeah. And he said, and because it's One Piece, just like Naruto and Bleach, nobody can just do things without explaining why they're doing them.
Right.
Like he even says, like, to somebody, like, I fought an admiral and I realized that what I was doing at that moment and who I was at that moment was not enough to protect people. And then what do you know? I lost 2 crew members, not necessarily related to the admiral, but like he lost 2 crew members right after that, and that kind of only reinforced that feeling. So he said, like, I had to get stronger. I had to think of a way to get stronger with what I have. And he creates, in my opinion, one of the coolest shonen power-ups of all time, which is Gear Second, with the most creative use of his fruit that I don't know if anybody could have thought of it like that. He basically just reinvents blood doping times 100 and goes with it. And like, that's a huge moment for him. And it's a moment that, like I said, 20, these are the kind of clips that get 20 million views on YouTube. People always go back to them because they're such giant moments. And I don't know how many people are looking at the moment where Crocodile stabs Luffy in the chest, but I know a ton of people are looking at the moment where an admiral shows up and washes the entire crew. And I think that impactful moment is what spurs all that growth. It's what gets Luffy from point A to point B, and point B being he's able to step onto the battlefield at Marineford and not fucking die. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, he dies a couple times. But.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very interesting perspective, because I do think, because I remember when I was reading it, I knew about the gears, right? I had heard about them. I had seen clips of them recommended on YouTube, and I was like, okay, when are they going to show up? And imagine my surprise when I was 300 chapters in and they hadn't shown up. I think that's the thing with One Piece. A lot of the things you expect to happen at some point have that some point be very late in the story. You mentioned the humbling, and it's the same for the gears. I feel like I would have expected them earlier, although with the gears I don't think it's a problem. With the humbling, I do agree. It's a bit, now that you mention it, it is a bit striking how long it takes.
it's the problem with creating. There are so like at the very beginning of even like Logue Town, there are so many echelon strength above Luffy. Like Luffy's not even an established pirate yet. His bounty is not that high. He can't even touch Smoker, who at that point is not even a vice admiral yet. He's just a guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think what is he, like a sergeant? I don't know what the at that point, but he's not a vice admiral at that point. He's not anybody. He's just a guy that shows up, and Luffy can't even touch him, you know. And then Ace shows up, and Ace is really strong in Alabasta, but even then, like, the ceiling is higher, right? You know, there's Whitebeard, there's whoever, and you meet Enel, who is argued to be on the level of at least a vice admiral at the very least, right? He's an insanely strong character. The only reason that Luffy can beat him is because he's his natural counter.
Mm-hmm.
But that isn't clearly. It's not because Luffy is the natural counter to Enel. It's not clearly communicated how strong Enel is and how big of a deal it is that Luffy best him. It's the same thing in Alabasta. Like, Crocodile fucks Luffy up like 3 times, but once Luffy realizes that he can soften Crocodile by getting him wet,
Mm-hmm.
it's over, you know? Like, he wins. He always finds that natural counter. So there's never a moment where Luffy just is not strong enough to beat somebody until Aokiji shows up and just mops the floor with them. And then it happens again. You know, with CP9, they fuck up Zoro and Luffy
Mm-hmm.
and Sanji. Like Water 7 and Enies Lobby are the absolute high point, in my opinion, of the series. And I think even afterwards, the quality maintains a steady level, but it never gets better than that stuff because everything that you're waiting for pays off, and it gets to that peak point where everything clicks and everything falls into place and everybody advances themselves and things like that. But you have to do a lot of work to get there. And I would argue that a lot of these arcs are not that great. I mean, just in my opinion, I don't think any of them are bad, but like, does anyone care about fucking Reverse Mountain, Whiskey Peak, Little Garden, Drum Island? And like, not really. I mean, Reverse Mountain is 4 chapters. It's not a huge deal, but a lot of stuff happens there that doesn't even come back up later until fucking chapter, 450. So it's like, you have to be super invested from the very beginning, and if you're not going to put in the work to have all of this stuff paid off, and that's not your fault. You know what I mean? So this is what
Mm-hmm.
pisses me off about, like I said, nobody knows how to shill the fucking series. Is like, people will be like, oh well, you've read 100 chapters, but all of this cool stuff happens 400 chapters, and you need to get there and experience it. But if you're not on board, like, I don't know how much it's going to mean to you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I will always keep the comment dear in my heart that told me I shouldn't talk about One Piece badly because I haven't read it in like 300 chapters. It's like, yeah, buddy, I've still
Yeah,
read
but
700
you
chapters, right?
you got the Dressrosa and you got into it, right? And that's like
Mm-hmm.
700. You're at least 700, right?
Yeah,
And that's enough.
750.
That's enough. And I would say that even where Zen is, Skypiea, he's not done Skypiea yet. That's enough. Like, that's enough to have an opinion on the series. I don't care how long something is, but if you can't keep somebody on board for 300 chapters, what makes you think they're going to read the other 700, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And this is One Piece's Achilles heel, in my opinion. I think otherwise it's a perfect series. I think there are a ton of great things about it. There are some things that I don't love. I don't like the post time skip art. I do love the pre time skip art. I think some of the arcs are too long, things like that. It kind of gets convoluted in the sense of how many characters and threads there are, but all of that ties back to how fucking long the series is. You know what I mean? I think that's the biggest problem with it. Whether or not that's something that you can avoid is to be debated, but I think that it is so fucking long. You know, like if somebody says like, "Oh my god, I can't wait for you to get to Greenford," it's like, dog, that's like episode 400.
Yeah, it's like an entire series worth just to get there.
Like, you could watch all of like an American TV show in a tenth of that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? depending on
Yeah.
the show, I guess. But it's such an investment, and I think that the expectation, it's like, oh well, it doesn't take that long if you just 2 episodes every day or whatever, something like that. Like you'll eventually catch up and you'll enjoy it as long as you're not blah, 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 blah. You can read a couple chapters here and there. You can, but it's like if you don't care about what's going on, like what's the point? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like like a lot of that advice kind of sounds like just make it in a routine because you have to. And it's like, no, I don't have to. I don't have to integrate it into my daily lives. And if I have to in order to like get to a point where I can enjoy it, then that's kind of a whack way to sell your series.
Well, my thing with One Piece is always like my girlfriend of 6 years has not watched it all the way through. We've gotten to maybe Logtown,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, and that was a long time ago. So if we're ever gonna do it, we're gonna start all the way over. And it's like that is so much shit to get through
Mm-hmm.
to watch it together. You know, kind of insane. It's kind of insane. But my rule for people has always been like just read the first 7 chapters, see how you feel. If you want to keep going, keep going. And if by Arlong Park you're not absolutely sold, just drop it. It's not worth it. I mean, it is worth it in my opinion, obviously. But I'm biased. Like you have to look at it from the mindset of can't buy into it. You know what I mean? And that is so much shit to read. Like
Mhm.
overall, One Piece is one of the greatest manga out there, in my opinion, that I've read. I should say because I haven't read a ton. I don't have like 1,000 series on my analyst list.
Yeah.
But it's one of the best. I mean, it's just a great story. There's a lot for you if you're just there to see the monster of the week and you just like the fights, you just like the characters and all that. But if you're super invested in all the politics and all the world and the economy and all of this shit, there's also a lot of that there for you. There's just so many ways to enjoy it. There's so many levels on which that you can enjoy One Piece, and I think that a lot of the other shonen series that it gets stacked up against don't have that same level of depth. Not that they need to, but I just think that One Piece is unique in that sense where it's like you could write a book about this book.
Yeah.
About how all the different little aspects and it is a nice thing that it's like things get mentioned in chapter 42 and they come back in chapter 790 and get expanded on, or they revisit it, or it adds a new perspective. But again, it's also a downfall. It's also its downfall. Everyone who's reading One Piece right now is probably the only people that are going to read. Usually.
Yeah, because like I do always say that I'm kind of jealous that people can just dive into One Piece who already love it and can have 1,000 chapters just waiting for them, because that's just so much content that you presumably like. And I do think that it is that quality of it that gives it that unique advantage of, as you said, having that depth. Because obviously, creating a depth and a world of that scale in anything less than 500, 600 chapters would already be difficult. So having that luxurious length, it's such a weird conundrum, because as you say, it is also its downfall. It is something that keeps it out of reach for many people, but it also gives it unique benefits. So it's definitely I sometimes joke about, One Piece on the top again of Shonen Jump or whatever, but I do definitely think it's definitely one of the most important manga series that I've ever like heard about in my life, just because that it's so long and it's so beloved despite that length.
Well, and there's just something about it. Like I remember I had a friend over whatsoever. He actually fucking hates it. Like overall.
Mm-hmm.
And he came over, he just came in because I was up at college. He just walked into my apartment and I had I was like auto playing on YouTube, and I guess like a One Piece clip was in my recommended, and it was just Zoro doing some cool shit. I don't remember what it was, but close your eyes and pick. It was a Zoro moment. It was probably fucking awesome. And
Yeah.
like he looked at the TV and was like, "Dude, that's fucking sick." And I was like, "Yeah, it's just like this is anime called One Piece, and he was like, I think I've heard of that, like blah 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 blah. And I wasn't like, oh, here you go, like here's the Shonen Jump app, like go ahead and get started. I was like, yeah, just like it's really fucking long, so if you're ever interested, like I could give you my Crunchyroll. And he was like, nah, it's too long. I was like, okay, like, and that's it, like, and I still send him the occasional like really cool out of context animation cut of One Piece, and he loves them, like, but he's never gonna watch it.
Yeah. I actually
I feel like that's what Zen is gonna end up being like, where it's like
Probably.
Zen never gets into One Piece, but it's like Zen, look at this really cool Zoro clip from episode 979, and there's no context, but it's just Zoro being badass. Like,
yeah, I had that happen to me with one of my friends actually, because I've been slowly getting him into anime as well. Like we're watching Jujutsu Kaisen right now together. And like he's like slowly just osmosing anime knowledge through me. And he like sent me a clip over Twitter DMs of like Zoro's big scene recently in the Wano arc. And he's like, dude, this is sick. What is this? And I'm like, that's One Piece. And he's like, oh no, that's long, isn't it? I'm like, it kind of is. And he's like, oh well. And that's kind of where that conversation ended. But yeah, like, it's so long at this point, people just like appreciate disparate aspects of it without actually having gone through it, I suppose, which I think is fair.
And that's something to say on its own. That's something crazy to think about. That you can just watch a clip, like somebody can just watch a clip and appreciate it with no context and just get the magic of it. But there are some people who are never going to be able to get to that place for whatever reason, and I think that is the biggest crying shame of the series, is that all my favorite moments are like deep. Like Water 7 and Enies Lobby are my favorite part of the series. I rewatch them all the time. I love Amazon Lily. I love Marineford. I love parts of Dressrosa. I love Whole Cake Island. Wano's been fine. Like, so it's just a lot of that stuff is later. And it's like, I go back every once in a while and watch like Alabasta or Arlong Park. But like, I'm not rereading fucking Orange Town, bro. Like, I'm not rereading Whiskey Peak or Drum Island or even Skypiea. Like, shit, man. Like, honestly, I think the way to do it is just watch the ARC movies for some of these joints. Like, just watch the episode of Skypiea and call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, they also look really good.
We're probably at like an hour on just one. One Piece is fantastic.
Actually, that was an excellent internal clock, because you just hit the exact amount of time that we spent on Naruto was also spent on One Piece right now.
My closing thing on is, I think it is just a magical piece of Shonen Jump that it has been this long, and that the same things that made it great in the beginning are still there. Maybe it has some problems that it didn't used to have, at least for me personally, but I still enjoy it. And I never get over feeling that way about Luffy or Sanji or Zoro, whoever, because they are always just in their element, and the series is consistently on point despite a few stinker stretches of time in the past. Like, still consistently great, and I wish everybody would try it, but I am a realist, not an idealist.
All right, that's fair. That's a good closing point. So we'll transition into our last boy here, which is Bleach. So that's me. I am Mr. Bleach, so I don't get asked to begin. So like I said, I kind of got involved with all of the big three to varying degrees at about the same time when I was younger, because obviously they were running at the same time. Bleach is probably the one that I resonated with the most, because this is a very personal thing for me, but I struggle with character motivations that are like, I want to be the guy. I want to be the greatest guy. Like that doesn't really hit for me.
Be the best guy.
Yeah, I want to be the best guy, right? Which was the whole big thing for Naruto and One Piece. So for both of them, there were aspects of them that I would like in spite of that, like where I wouldn't necessarily vibe with the character goal, but I really vibed with Naruto as a person, like, stuff like that. Whereas with Bleach, I was able to kind of do both, where I really like Ichigo as a protagonist, but I also think that just like the centered idea of like if something bad happens around me, I'm gonna protect people because it's the right thing to do. Like, it's very simple, and it's a very, there's no politics involved in that. There's no well, eventually there is, but in the beginning, there's no politics involved in that. There's no like, I want to reshape society in my image because it would be better. Any of that stuff. It's just like, I don't like it when bad things happen to people that I care about, and I'm not going to let them happen. I love the Bleach aesthetic. I'm very big on like stylization in my series. It's why I love JoJo's Bizarre Adventure so much, because if there's any word you could use to describe it, it would be stylized, and Bleach is very much the same way. Um, And I think Bleach is just one of those shows for me. I guess manga more because that's what we're talking about than show, especially because the Bleach show kind of drags in a lot of areas that the manga doesn't. Um, Bleach has a very like clean, neat pace to it, and especially in the beginning. Later on, it gets muddled, but in the very beginning, Bleach never feels like it lingers on anything more than it needs to, but it never feels like you've like been rushed through it either. You experience a lot with Ichigo. A lot of the early series focuses almost exclusively on him and a few of his friends, just kind of their backstory. But a lot of the backstory, heavy lifting, is done by Ichigo. You get a little bit of Orihime in her episode. You get a little bit of Chad in his episode. You get a little bit, but not even close to all of Uryu and his. And then the rest of it is just Ichigo and the reason why he cares so much about keeping people safe after his mom got killed by Hollow and all that stuff. And it's just very like, it's a very human story early on. A lot of the early stuff is just like Ichigo wants to keep people safe. He has the big conflict with Byakuya because Byakuya is seemingly willing, when not actually, but seemingly is willing to sacrifice his sister for the law. And Ichigo doesn't like that. And it's a big clash of ideals that, while it seems like it's political and it's societal at large, of like, is it right to do the right thing even when it's, is it right to do the right thing when it's illegal, or is it wrong to break the law for the right reasons? And it's ultimately just, I think you should be nicer to your sister. It's like the ultimate crux of the conflict, right? It's like, that's what it is.
Like, dude, you're just kind of a dick.
Yeah, you're just kind of an asshole. Like, could you not be a dick? And Bleach always kind of has that energy to it. Like, it's immensely stylish. Every character looks great all the time. Kubo has an amazing sense for like, how do I make this moment pop, both visually and just in the context. Like, everything about Kenpachi pops all the time. Everything the man does is awesome. Byakuya pops all the time.
Right.
He has a great sense of like, when things need to be foreboding, when things need to be heartwarming, and how to convey like. I think maybe it's just because when I was reading Bleach, it was up against Naruto and One Piece, which are very much like, we scream our emotions in giant speech bubbles where we give a speech about how we're going to be the best guy. And Bleach doesn't really do that. Bleach is a lot more subdued. So to me, I enjoyed Bleach's ability to kind of convey complicated feelings through very subtle nods, facial expressions, simple little dialogue. Because Ichigo is very much like, if Naruto is the class clown, Ichigo is very much the brooding, don't talk to me kid. Right? Like, he kind of has the moment where he explains that that's more or less on purpose because he's a teenager and he thinks it makes him look cool. But like, that was probably more the kid that I was. I was a class clown here and there, but I was also very much the like, don't talk to me if I don't have to talk to you kind of person. So I like the way that Kubo can convey emotion and feeling through. I mean, there's a lot of panels where it's just his character's eyes, and that's it. And you can pull everything out of their interaction, and it's great, and I love it.
I've often said that like the reason that people mistake Ichigo for having no motivation as a character, never flat out just says it.
Like, yeah, he doesn't screech it into the sky. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't just look at the camera and say, I want to help people because my mom died. But like, honestly, the first time I ever had Ichigo's spelled out for me was when I downloaded Brave Souls. and like the first thing is just like a big fucking splash of Ichigo's like character, the one that you can get, and it's like a young man who fights to protect, and I was like, yeah, I guess he does, doesn't he? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, he does. That's true. Like, I had never heard it said because I just was like, it's never something you think about.
And the same thing kind of tends to happen as people will say, like, oh, Ichigo doesn't have any character growth. He's the exact same character in episode 1 as he is in the very end of the series, which is obviously untrue. But like, it's because his character growth is not defined by either a drastic shift in personality or a change in goal or motivation. Like, in the very beginning, Ichigo is very much driven by like guilt. His mom is dead. He thinks it's entirely his fault. And so he's kind of a jerk asshole who doesn't like people getting close to him because he's pretty much dominated by that. So when he gets Rukia's powers, a lot of what he does is based on either a sense of guilt or a sense of like, I owe this person, whatever this person's going through is because of me. I need to make it better for them. It's my responsibility to do that. Whereas later on, a lot of it is just a sense of personal responsibility. He's matured a lot, and he realizes that it's the right thing to do, no matter what the reasoning is. He doesn't have to owe somebody to stop Aizen. Aizen is not his fault. He needs to stop Aizen because Aizen is doing the wrong thing. And protecting these people from him is the right thing to do, even if he's not personally invested in whatever Aizen's doing. It's a big change in motivation that at no point revolves around the class clown crying. And so it's a lot of people say it never happens, and it very much happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think this is like a good thing and a bad thing for me about Bleach is that I love Ichigo so much that I think that I kind of tunnel vision on him a lot about the series, like because of who I love. Like he's my second favorite character in Bleach, but he is my favorite character in Bleach, if that makes sense. Like just he is so well written, and just like his journey through the series and how he changes, and he also not only does he interact with the world around him, but a lot of what he does is reacting to the world around him. Like they are the driving instigators, the Soul Society arc, because they go there and fuck shit up, but it would be happening whether or not they followed them there to rescue Rukia. Like they show up and they're constantly just reacting to things that are happening to them. Like, okay, Ikaku's here now. Okay, that guy with the stupid haircut that I can't remember his name ever, he's here now. Like Renji's here now. Like now we're dealing with Kenpachi. Like we are just getting put through the ringer, and each one of these interactions prepares Ichigo for the next one, whether it's in physical form, like getting him prepared in terms of learning and fighting and things like that, or like talking with somebody and understanding more about them. Like I would say that's the difference between his battle with Ikaku and his battle with Renji. Like he has a very physical fight with Ikaku. He learns that there's a ceiling and he's not even close to it, and then Kenpachi is gonna fucking murder you because he's way stronger than me. And then he has that exchange with Renji, where of course it's a battle, sure, but it's also an exchange, right? A psychological exchange. He learns a little more about Renji, he learns a little more about Rukia, and he learns a lot more about himself. So there's so much of that throughout Bleach, but I feel like I pay more attention to it for Ichigo than I do for anybody else, excusing Hachi, of course. Everything he did.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I think that it's at varying degrees with a lot of characters in Bleach, because there are a lot of characters in Bleach that have a lot of moments, but it's really easy to disregard those moments because Kubo writes a lot of characters, and inevitably when that happens, someone has to get left behind, right? Like I would say Chad is a really good example of a character that gets left behind a lot, despite being almost constantly involved in what's going on and having a lot of character defining moments. I'd be a lot more hard pressed to name 3 great Chad moments, despite him always being there.
Yeah, I mean, and One Piece, and I think Naruto problem too. This is like a big problem. The leaving behind syndrome.
Oh, sure, it's a shonen problem in general. I mean, people have been crying about this in Dragon Ball for 23 years, right? Like you can't avoid it.
And I'm one of them.
Yeah, me too. I am with you on that. But like, you
Yeah.
can't avoid it when your cast is so big. But I think that like inevitably in a series that's as big as Bleach, people are going to tunnel vision on maybe 4 to 5 characters they like the most.
Right. Absolutely. And I think we all have, right? If we were to go around the room.
Mm.
All right,
Yeah,
Mr. Ocean Boy, you're just starting it now. After
yes,
3
I
straight years of being a vicious Bleach hater.
Yeah, the scourge of the Bleach community has
The most
finally,
hated man in the Bleach world.
this slimy hypocrite has crawled his way back to Kubo's teat.
his lovely bosom. I
Yeah.
finally found the way.
And it's
Oh, do you think?
all because of us.
Yeah, like, do you think the stock markets will survive this vicious upset,
They
this
will not.
betrayal? Oh,
It's
God,
already
I'm so
crashing
sorry.
right now. Everyone's selling their stock in My Hero Academia.
Yep.
Okay,
So where are you now in Bleach?
I've just started Soul Society. I am there. I'm at the point where Ichigo has like done his training with the shop guys,
Urahara.
and he's like sort of turned into a hollow, but not really. He's like just managed to avoid it. I think that's where I stopped. Um, and my like impression of it is it's super cool. Like literally, like the word "cool" is what
Yeah, it
comes to my
is.
mind. Yeah, it's like it's just rawness and swag through and through, like more than Naruto and One Piece, I think. Like just having that sort of that style, that swagger to most of what happens. And I'm just enjoying like the hell out of it. I can't say it has like really hit me yet. Like there were a couple of moments with especially like the conversations Ichigo had with his dad over at the grave of his mother. I thought that was really good also because I think Kubo gets a lot of mileage out of Ichigo's dad at this point. Like he has a lot of great expressions and great
Oh, you
lines.
have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
You have no fucking idea.
Yeah, I mean, this must be weird for you guys. You're like seeing a literal baby talking about quantum physics here and getting it all
Hey,
probably wrong.
I mean, it's like whenever I try, it's the same thing.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm having a lot of fun. Like so it feels I think I told Zen before. It feels very 90s. It feels
Oh yeah.
90s in a way that I think I think maybe the other two don't feel like that, but I can't really put my finger on it. Maybe it is because out of the big three, of course, it's the only one that's set in our world, and so it like bathes in that atmosphere way more than like Naruto and One Piece would because they're just set in fictional worlds or completely fictional worlds. But you know, it has a certain charm to it. Sometimes it annoys me, like some of the like gag scenes I could live without, but you know, that's like the extent of my annoyance. Like I could live without it. There's not been anything that's like super offensive to me yet. I really like Ichigo. I think he definitely feels very down to earth compared to a lot of other shonen protagonists. He just feels like a guy faced with hardship who does the most out of it and who tries to do the right thing. And I think that that's very compelling. So, yeah, like I'm having fun. I'm really excited to see what Soul Society is all about because that's the one I keep hearing about.
Yeah,
And
most people say that that's the arc where it does really hook them. Fine, like it
okay.
really sinks its teeth into them in Soul Society. Whether that will happen
Well,
for you or not, I don't know. But
I think it's because like up until that point, it's very Monster of the Week, Spirit
Mhm.
Detective, like
very early Yu Yu
kind
Hakusho vibes. Yeah.
yeah, like it, and I don't even think that's a bad thing. So I don't want to say Monster of the Week in like a bad way, but it does it feels a lot like Buffy the Slayer is a good way that I would describe it. Is you're getting small moments of growth wrapped in a every week there's a new
Some
really
sort of
fucking
hollow. Yeah.
hollow we have to kill. Yeah.
Mm.
And like I like that, you know what I mean? But I think that it does not if you held it up next to One Piece and Naruto, right? You would say like, okay, Land of Waves is its own thing. Syrup Village and Baratier are its own things, but like in Bleach, like you're covering the same amount of episodes or chapters roughly that you would for maybe 2 or 3 One Piece arcs, early ones. And there's not like a main thing happening. It's not like a main baddie. We're not storming the castle. We're not trying to go here to get this bridge built or whatever. We're just kind of hanging out and killing low level demons. You know what I mean? Like it's very relaxed. So I think that is like a strength and a weakness. Because like once you hit Soul Society, it is fucking all gas, no brakes. You're not prepared for that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know what you mean because I haven't experienced it yet, but I'm excited for it, definitely. Like, yeah, I feel like with Monster of the Week, I always struggle a bit getting invested, especially if I know that, okay, this is going to have a plot later on, so let me just kind of get through this stuff. But I will say I enjoyed Bleach's Monster of the Week format more than I thought I would. Like,
I go back and watch those all the time. They're just cool. I wish he could do the cool shit that he could do later in those, obviously bullshit, but like I enjoy them. They're just fun. You know what I mean? Or chapters too. I reread on it.
Yeah, it's just kind of a long first segment where you just get to see all the wacky people that live in what's the place? Karakura Town, something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's just fun. It reminds me a lot of like in a way JoJo Part 4, where you're just getting to meet the wacky people that live in
Yeah, because it's
town.
good. Yeah, for sure. I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I get that because you're going around town. There's another wacky person that isn't normal that they're helping out that day, and it's a very
and what I think about that is like all of that. Like if he had got his powers, sudden like Byakuya should, Rukia, you have violated the law. You will come with me now. Blah, blah. Like I don't think the payoff would be as good when you see Ichigo just get his ass beat because like there's literally like a good, I don't know how many episodes it is or chapters, but like let's say it's 20 or 30 of like every, there's this tough hollow, but Ichigo beats him. There's this tough hollow, but Chad helps. There's all these crazy hollows, and Ichigo's kind of got his footing, and now he's figured it out, and he can cut them up with ease, and he's having a good time, and everybody's happy. And then Byakuya shows up and he gets humbled, right? I know he has some trouble with Uryu, but like that's the first time, and I feel like without all that essentially training, what it is really, I think it's not earned that big arc that you're about to read.
Yeah, because like I think one thing that I've already like found with Soul Society is that it manages to feel monumental really quickly, just with the confrontation with Byakuya and Renji, just based on the fact that up until they appear, there's a lot of talking happening alongside the fights. Like Ichigo does end up talking to a lot of like the main characters he ends up meeting, like the named ones. Obviously, he doesn't really talk to the Hollows, but with Byakuya especially, it's just cold stone wall. You cannot have a conversation with that guy. He just wrecks Ichigo. And what really sticks with me still is that just the end of that chapter where they've taken Rukia, they've left, and Ichigo's just lying in the rain, bleeding and screaming. And it's like, a top-down perspective, almost as if you're looking at it from a street lamp. And it's like, that's quite a way to start an arc after 50 chapters of here's a goofy ghost guy you have to fight, and also here's Chad who has a big arm sometimes. So yeah, no, I'm definitely excited for what's to come. I think I'm gonna stick with it. Like I don't see a reason to like take a break, unless of course Twitter annoys me too much and I need like to detox myself. But I doubt that'll happen. Like I think they've already stopped. I saw it going on for like 2 days, but I think now they've gotten bored. Hopefully.
One can only hope.
Yeah, I mean, and like here's the thing. Like when I sit down with Zen over the weekend and I watch an episode of Skype, get the fuck over it and start reading Annie's Lobby, and he starts loving Annie's Lobby, and all of a sudden he loves One Piece. It's all happening in my head, by the way. Like he's gonna get a raft of shit for it, like, oh my god, the One Piece, blah 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 blah. Like I feel like that's just inevitable, and who gives a shit? Just keep it moving. know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said it to Zen earlier as well. Like as long as it doesn't like flow into, some really nasty shit, like if people start acting like my IRLs or some shit, or start lobbing dumb stuff in the DMs, like as long as that doesn't happen, I'm kind of just chilling and laughing at it from a
But
distance
like,
because it
I
is
think
weird.
my thing is like it that's all I want is for somebody to enjoy that's it.
Yeah, it's
Or
a weird
One Piece or
mentality to
whatever.
have where like
You
you're
were mean
never
to me
allowed to
3
change
years
your view
ago.
on something, and if you don't like it, you're never allowed to because you have wounded us, the fans, and we must protect it from you. It's very
But
strange.
I honestly think Bleach is one of it's in the same boat as One Piece. I think that it gets like a lot of people that read it in the beginning and just can't get on board with it, and they don't understand. They don't get it. Like that's the way I think about it.
Well,
Is like
Bleach
it
struggled through
doesn't tickle you.
a lot of disinformation early on, toward its ending period back when it was initially running. A lot of
So
stuff
yes,
like it the popularity plummeted because it wasn't number one in the table of contents, which is like that's not great evidence. And then you have the whole like, oh, Kubo and Shonen Jump hate each other, so they canceled Bleach, which obviously is not true, but that was the
right.
prevailing thing for a long time. And I do think that had some impact on it. The state of the anime community with Bleach for a while was one of like, oh, Bleach was the odd one out of the big three, and it was so shitty that Shonen Jump canceled it after letting it run for 700 fucking chapters. Like,
Yeah, right.
if you think about it for a minute, it doesn't make any sense. But like, there was that prevailing idea for a long time that like Naruto was allowed to do whatever it wanted in the war arc, and One Piece is still going because they're great, and Bleach was canceled when it really wasn't because it's so awful. And I do think that colored perception of it for a while.
Oh, for sure.
Even as recent as maybe like 2 years ago, it was difficult to even
I
talk
still
about
think it's
Bleach.
fighting that battle. I
It
still think
is.
it's
It's
fighting.
not over, yeah. But it
Some
was
people,
difficult
yeah.
to even discuss it for a while without people being like, "Oh, that's one of the worst anime ever, isn't it?" And it's like, it's one of the top selling series of all time. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also one problem was that until it was revealed that the anime was coming back, there was always that looming over it, over any discussion that you would have online. And that would quickly get used in the discussion as well, whether it's coming back and if you don't believe it, you're a hater, or the anime, this manga is bad because its anime will never come back because
Oh,
it.
that happened to me when Blood War got announced like 2 years ago or some shit. Like never there's no way they bring that.
yeah.
Blood War gets announced like 3 years later, and somebody was like, "Bet you feel stupid," and I was like, not really. Like,
Like,
not really at all.
Like
Like
one of my
I was
tweets that's going around is me saying, "Just let Bleach die if you're not gonna bring it back." And they're like, slander or hater." It's like, no, that's what I thought in 2018 because it didn't look like it was coming back. It's
Yeah,
like,
the landscape is very different to be sure from back when people were
so
saying. And then you have the same people who are like, "Oh, Bleach is coming back," and they said it in 2016, and then Bleach got confirmed in what was it, 2019 or 2020, that it was coming
Mhm.
back, and people are like, "I knew it," and I was like,
I
"Shut up,
told you.
dude! You've been saying
Yeah,
it for four. Just because it finally happened does not mean you've been following
Yeah,
the scoop for 7 years on the return of
yeah.
Bleach."
You were sitting on the story for
Yeah,
5 years,
you had
and
a fly on the wall in the
you know
studio for 5 years, and you just
Shueisha
didn't.
didn't assassinate you as soon as you
Hmm.
tweeted it out in 2015. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
come on. Like, yeah, it's just and I think that this is a very rare instance that I would argue that community has severely hamstrung the series itself. Again, at least in our little bubble, right? Like, fucking all over the world, people like Bleach. Like, I'm not talking. Like, but
Right.
like on
And the
Twitter, right?
scope
Like,
of like online anime discourse. Yeah.
yeah, the scope of online anime discourse, the whole online anime discourse, I feel like a lot of that shit has kind of muddied the water. Whenever people try Bleach, it's oh, this is the one with all that, and like it gets in the way of you know how fucking great the series is.
Yeah,
Like
it does. And it's
it's
something that
just so
Naruto and One Piece
purely
never had
good.
to really deal with. No, One Piece gets a lot of shit, but like when you've sold more than Dragon Ball and Naruto combined, I think you can handle
you're
a little bit
still
of
going.
needling. Yeah, and you're
Yeah,
still
and you're
going.
still going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
I
a
mean, this
harder
isn't like
sell
this.
for
This
a
would be like shitting on Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, that should
right. And
not everyone's watched the anime, and like, that's a safe one to shit on or something like that. But like, shitting on One Piece, like, who cares? Same thing with Bleach, who cares? But when the shitting on is so successful in the sense that you just lie and people believe it, hey, like,
yeah, I mean, there was one video. I don't remember the guy because I don't watch a whole lot of anime YouTube. Sorry. There was one guy who
we're
put that video out, and it was like, oh, these are all the reasons why Bleach is terrible, and it failed. And then he just put one out this year that was like, yeah, this is that Bleach video I made. Everything I said was wrong. But it's like the damage
Yep.
is done.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
out there
it's
for
too
4
late.
years. You can't fix it. Like
Yeah. And I mean, he kind of, if I remember correctly, people were still not happy about the second video either, because he apparently still insisted on some of the things that were wrong, that they were actually correct, and it was just
yeah,
misunderstood
I
or
haven't
whatever.
watched the
Like, I
second
didn't
video
watch
either,
it.
but I watched someone talk about it a little bit, and it was
Mhm.
basically just like he admitted that basically the majority of the stuff that he said was wrong, but then tried to like pivot to other reasons why he was right originally, but he just had the wrong like idea of why. But it was like, stop.
I'm gonna keep it 100%. I didn't watch either of those videos. I don't give a fuck why you think Bleach failed, because Bleach did not fail.
Yeah,
Like,
it's one
there
of the
was
biggest
no
anime
fall
ever.
of Bleach.
Yeah.
There was no fall of Bleach. This is like when people say like, like Toriko was a flop, and it's like, or fuck, what's another series? Shit, Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, as a manga, I don't care about the card game or anything like that, but it's just like when you look at things that like sold really well but are still well known and had a successful run and had multiple, 100 chapters, whatever, like, that's not a failure. You know what I mean? Like, and even when Bleach was at its end, like, it was still a big deal. Like, it was still a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Right.
crazy.
They're the big three for a reason. But like Bleach is the only one that I've ever seen people say like, we should remake the big three into One Piece, Naruto, and Dragon Ball because Bleach is
Yeah.
bad. And then you're like, why is Bleach bad? And they're like, shut up. Like
bullshit power ups and things that send.
They just linked the video.
yeah,
They just
oh
linked
god,
the whole
yeah,
thing.
that's my
like,
favorite.
I don't want to get too much into like spoilers and stuff out of respect for Oceans. I feel like there
Right.
are things
Aw.
that don't make its way onto the, like, One Piece. I don't care because I'll talk about it forever because those clips are out there. You're gonna see them. But I feel like Bleach doesn't have. You're not close enough to that circle, Dennis, to get spoiled. I don't think.
Mhm. I mean, I know about I think I know the big one, like the thing with Aizen.
Well, I mean,
Or
there's
at
some
least-
stuff you can't
that's
avoid because it's
inevitable.
like cultural osmosis, right? Like
Yeah,
everyone knows who Yoriichi is because you can't keep that reveal down for 15 years, or Aizen. Like
Yeah.
you can't have a guy who is one of like the most popular anime villains. You can't preserve that twist, but there's still a
Yeah.
lot of stuff that
Yeah, I mean, like, Jump Force. It's like, okay, well, I've seen this guy play. If you played Jump, that's the only Bleach video. Right? Yeah, I mean, you're just gonna find out. But there are a lot of things that do not make it past that membrane, I think, and I don't think I think that's a luxury that Bleach enjoys that Naruto and One Piece don't have.
Mm-hmm. I mean, perhaps also specifically because it's like online discourse or whatever was so like hamstrung by the disinformation that the community suffered, because of course
I do
stuff
think
like that
there is
also
some
stifles
correlation to it.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Well,
like when
and
I think it's also
it's
helped
meant to
by
be-
not being an ongoing series. Naruto technically isn't, but with Boruto it might as well be.
What? No, what did I say?
I know,
What did I say?
I'm speaking purely from an online discourse standpoint.
All
we
these
speak-
people are idiots.
And
You
speaking
hear me? If you like Boruto, you're an idiot. I said it.
we
said
can't
it
even
so you
avoid
all didn't
Boruto
have to.
slander on a guest episode.
I said it. Hey, they get mad at me. They're not gonna get mad at you. They'll get mad at me. I said it.
Yeah, no, Zen was purely speaking of like a hypothetical situation where Naruto had a sequel.
Had
called
some kind
Boruto.
of shitty sequel about his pissy child, yeah. Which
Yeah, that never
not
happened,
real.
obviously. Not real.
Yeah. But like part of it is that because it's over, the majority of the discourse comes from people who already like it, and then you have that that we talked about, the kind of not toxic, maybe toxic, but the tainted sort of reputation that all of the basically made up shit about it caused, has led to it being like you either already like Bleach or you probably have this painted preconception of it from the internet that is probably wrong.
Well, and I think that discourse around series that are going is pretty much the only like, let's think about it, right? Like Yu Yu Hakusho's over. That shit's been over. And like the only thing you ever see of it is like the same 3 clips or the same posts, right? Like you don't see discussion of it unless somebody's reading it currently and they haven't read it before. Like people tell me all the time, like nobody talks about Toriko. Wow. And it's like you weren't on anime message boards in like the late 2000s and the early 2010s. Like you weren't there. There was discussion. The shit is over. No one's discussing it anymore. You know what I mean? So like that is a super valid thing.
You can't look at any
the
series that
discussions-
sold over like 10 million copies. You can't look me in the face and say it didn't do well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing about it is like Bleach earned its place. Like I had people screaming Bankai at recess when I was a kid. Like that shit earned its place. It 100% did. The fact that it permeated the US barrier like is enough to say. And the fact that even in some instances, I would argue it's more states than One Piece. Or was.
I think in the States, I would say that. I think that the big 3 all kind of permeated different areas of like, I think Naruto is probably the biggest in the States of the 3.
Oh, absolutely. Like without question.
Yeah.
100%.
But I do think that One Piece is probably the least prevalent, at least in collective popular culture of the 3 in the States. Whereas I think
Correct.
it tends to dominate Europe pretty hard.
France.
It dominates France. I'll say that.
Yes,
But I know how
that's-
you
that's
feel
the
about
thing.
them, so.
No, the thing is
Whoa, that's
with
the
Europe
French.
with Europe there's pretty much you can pretty much draw a line between South and North Europe. North Europe is very much leaning towards Naruto and Bleach, whereas South Europe is mostly One Piece. I think with
When's the war?
When's the war arc?
When's
Give us
the
another
war?
give us another 300 chapters. I mean, it's Europe. We're gonna find an excuse to make war. That's literally half our
True.
identity. But like, yeah, I think with maybe the exception of Italy, I think Italy is big on Naruto because Naruto got like a very prestigious dub in Italy as well, which I believe One Piece didn't. But
And you know
yeah.
the best thing about it
what's that?
is if you go look at Japan, they love all this fucking shit.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter. None of it matters. You know, like all these fucking morons who get on their which one's better, which one is more popular. It's like if you ask a Japanese person who's like into anime, obviously not just any Japanese, like, and you just be like, dude, what do you think of Bleach, Naruto, and One Piece? Like, guarantee they'll be like, yeah, those are all sweet. Like,
Yeah, I like
you know
all
what I
of
mean?
them.
Like,
Yeah.
I like all of them.
Yeah.
Like, these little wars. It's such a white people thing. Like all these fucking little little
Yeah, the
factions.
fandom battles of group chats coordinating who to mass report because they said that Naruto stinks.
Here's the thing: is that's the beauty of it. Is 3 of us have gotten on. We all like one more than the other. We all have one that we're not as crazy about, except me, because I'm just fucking great. You guys need to figure your shit out. But like, and we're talking about them all, and we're just having a good time. We fucking love all of them. There's, oh, this one's bad, blah 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 blah. It's just like it. If you look at them for what they are and you take them as they are and you enjoy them and try to get as much enjoyment out of them as possible, I feel like they all have that appeal. And I would say in terms of pure enjoyment, Bleach is unrivaled.
Yeah,
Like-
Bleach is like, I will probably say that like I think there's more to it than people give it credit for. But I would definitely say that if you're going to sit down and analyze the narrative of the 3, Bleach is probably the lightest one. I don't agree with a lot of the criticism that there's nothing there, because there's a lot there. But
Oh, there is
Naruto
definitely. Yeah.
and part of that is like Ocean said, Naruto and One Piece take place in entirely fictional worlds with entirely fictional governments and entirely fictional planetary like structures and systems.
But here's the thing though, is so does Bleach.
To an extent, with Soul Society.
Soul Society is the world, is the setting, right? Like all that world building's done in Soul Society.
I don't know that I would call Soul Society the entirety
Culture.
of the setting. I think it's
Well, I don't think it is either, but like, you know, them standing over Katakuri Town
Karakura.
fighting like whatever. Fighting Aizen, like sure they're in Japan, but like, you know, I would argue in terms of what gets the most world building and what gets the most attention, at least at first, it's definitely Soul Society.
Oh, for sure.
I know they go all over the place. Like it's escaping me now, but
Hueco
you know,
Mundo?
there's a exactly that one. I can't pronounce anything in that fucking series. Like they go to a lot of different settings, but those places are established and those places get explored and built out. And I think so. I don't know if I necessarily agree that like that's an advantage that Naruto and One Piece have, because like I would just think each of these different places like an island on or a village in Naruto. You know what I mean? They're entirely different places with entirely different systems.
That's
And
fair.
Kubo
I
still
think
has to
that,
flush
like,
them out. Otherwise, they're just
Yeah.
it's just a bunch of fucking painted houses. Who cares? You know?
I think like in Naruto especially though, like they're all kind of commiserate in the same area, whereas like with Soul Society, I guess is kind of more tied into the real world, but with like Hueco Mundo, that's just a place where like they go to fuck some shit up and they never talk about or go ever again, and seems to serve
Right.
no real purpose in like the grand scheme of the narrative other than like it's the hollow world, and that's all you
That's
really get
fair.
out of it.
Yeah.
Whereas like Soul
I agree
Society
with
and
that.
the inner functionings of Soul Society are very tied in and important. Whereas with like Naruto, you have to worry about like nobody in Soul Society ever said we can't do this because it will piss off the Hollow Nation in Hueco Mundo, and we have to maintain
that's
that
true.
political boundary. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And even more so, just it's absurd at that point with how much politics there is.
Right. Well,
in
because
the
you have like the
series. It
world
might be why I
government
like
and
it more.
the Marines and all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah,
yeah.
the revolutionaries.
Right.
The
Whereas
goats.
with Bleach, it's very much like this is the real world, this is Soul Society, this is the way it's all supposed to work, and all this other shit is like a problem that needs to be stopped from
Right.
interfering with the cyclical thing of Soul Society. And it's not as intertwined.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that, like you said, like it's maybe the weakest in like that regard. But I think that what is there is I don't want to say good enough, but let's say good enough for the story that we're in, for the type
Oh yeah,
of
yeah, I
narrative
agree.
that
I don't mean that as like a criticism of Bleach. I think that like I think maybe in terms of raw characterization, I think Bleach does it maybe the best. I don't know. I don't want to talk about One Piece because I don't know. I haven't gotten to the points that you guys have talked about earlier, so I don't want to speak prematurely for that.
300 chapters in. Yeah,
I know.
Novice.
I'm a baby with only my entire length of Hunter x Hunter haven't read into One Piece, and I'm still not
Yep.
at the first
You're not
maturation moment
you're
yet.
not at the good part yet. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
But like, it's just different. Whereas like, I think that a lot of Bleach stuff is very subtle, and it's just kind of on an emotional level very sweet. Like the final moments between Rukia and Ichigo and stuff, but before the big twist later on, all that stuff is like, it's very subtle, it's very sweet, kind of both times. Like when she's in the rain and he's in the rain, and she's like, "Don't touch my brother, you fucking human," but it's obviously not real, and she's like on the brink of tears,
Mhm.
and she walks
Mhm.
off, and it's like, shit, that hit so fucking hard. And Bleach is full of that kind of stuff.
And that's exactly how I know you'd love Ennie's Lobby. But again, I'm gonna stop talking about One Piece.
He says he's gonna
Dude,
stop telling me
like-
about it. He's gonna DM me 3 times about One Piece just tonight for the rest of the night.
It'll probably be about the mobile game, but yeah, probably. Like Ennie's Lobby is literally Soul Society. Like it's the same arc. Like, and they're both incredible. Like Oceans is laughing because he's back. He knows I'm telling the truth.
Yes, I do know. Halfway through One Piece, Oda does the very brave thing and just inserts Ichigo and the others and just has Soul Society happen.
They just show up and do
They
so.
just
it's-
show up in One Piece.
If I would be so presumptuous to or so aggressive and reckless in my speech, I would say that it is almost like Oda took a break from writing One Piece and decided to enact a 3-act play, reenacting all of Soul Society, but using his characters as actors in this 3-act play.
Yeah, it was really brave of Oda to have Luffy look directly out of the page into the reader's eyes and say, "Wow, this really is just like Soul Society. Read Bleach, please."
Guy who's only read Bleach reading One Piece. Wow, I'm getting real Soul Society vibe. Anyway,
so one other
No,
thing I
but,
wanted to
like-
talk about with Bleach before we move into our final words about just
fucking
stop
raw it
fucking
is.
arguing and like anime, is that it's the one of the three that the most kind of uses the trope of personalized power sets, whereas everyone has their Zanpakuto that does a specific
yeah.
thing for them. And you've got Shikai
Wait,
and
Oceans,
Bankai.
you know what Bankai is, right? Like, you understand?
I have an idea of what it is. It's not been introduced yet, but it's like your ultimate attack, right?
Fuck. Yes,
Basically,
basically.
more or
Okay.
less.
Anyway.
It's a Super Saiyan,
Okay.
but everyone has it.
It's like, imagine if everyone could go Saiyan, but every time they did it, something's different. Like, it all works different for each person.
Okay, yeah. All right.
It's like domain expansions.
It's very
can't
much
remember.
like domain expansions, yeah, or like curse. Like if you think of their sword like a curse technique, Bankai is the domain expansion. Yes,
Okay, so another like Jujutsu Kaisen Bleach parallel. Let's go.
yes. There's a lot of those.
Mhm.
Yeah, the main one being they're both fucking awesome.
They're both fucking
They're
sick.
both
Yeah,
good.
Remember to
fucking
like
incredible.
and subscribe, by the way.
But that's an anime trope that I like a lot. It's actually something that happens in a Rurouni Kenshin author whose name I will not say so that we don't get demonetized.
Mhm.
It's another series he did called Buso Renkin, where they have the similar thing, is everyone has an item that generates a power very specific to them based on like who they are and their personality and stuff. And I like that.
Yeah,
I like that a lot.
kind of like One Piece. Yeah.
I mean, everyone has their fruits in One
Huh?
Piece. That's true.
I'm just kidding.
And I don't know. I
but
know
I know
One
what
Piece
you
has
mean.
magic too later on, but I don't know any about the magic yet.
You'll get there.
We'll see. I'm
You'll
not
get there.
prepared to make that promise on the air, but we'll see.
You'll get there.
All right, Neo's making that promise for me.
I'm just laughing
Well-
because I know the chapter in which that gets introduced, and I know Neo's gonna have to keep making a couple of promises to get Zen that far.
Oh, we'll do it. Even if I have to drag him there myself. Watching the condensed arc get him there
You gonna-
somehow.
You're gonna go and watch One Piece. You're gonna download
One
all
Piece.
of that.
Dude, they've got the fucking shits on Crunchyroll where just here's an arc in 2 hours of anime. That's the way to do it for people like him. It's easy. Don't even worry about it. Anyone who
won't.
thinks the manga is the best way to do it, fucking idiots. There's much faster ways to read One Piece.
You hear that,
Anyway.
Oda?
The power system is my favorite part of it and of the series, and that's because I mean the fights are so fucking good and everybody's so fucking cool and so fucking raw. Oh my god, I love Bleach. But like the power system is so creative in the sense that like when I first saw all the captains in Soul Society, and maybe Zen, maybe you felt the same way too. I don't know if it's just an exclusive thing because we both experienced it totally without outside influence, like unlike Oceans who seen a lot of this different stuff. But like when I saw all the captains like walking around Soul Society, like talking and shit like that, I was like, Ichigo's got this big ass sword on his back all the time. And you're telling me all these people carry around our same katana? Like they all have it. It's all the same shit. And then like once they actually start fighting, you realize that all of their weapons actually do look really different and perform differently. And each time it's like, okay, well when they draw their sword, now it looks different, right? Because they've activated the thing or whatever it's called.
Shikai.
Yeah, sure, whatever. They activate that and like now their sword looks, it looks like 3 swords taped together, or it looks like a staff, or it looks like a whatever, but it started out as like this basic weapon, and that's like the first step. And it's like, okay, well, that's really fucking badass. And then you find out that there's a they can do that takes it even further, where like it gets more badass, and sometimes it does things that are insane or hard to comprehend, and like that was the coolest thing to me, like reading through. And like Zen said, it works into everybody's personality or their goals or their objectives or what they need or how they think or anything like that. All of the powers kind of perfectly align.
Yeah, like I mean, as I said, I haven't seen much of the power system yet. We've barely gotten Zanpakuto's.
Everybody's got swords.
Yeah, like the Zanpakutos have been explained barely now. But funnily enough, I did actually, even like years before I started Bleach, a couple of months ago, years before, my first like exposure to Bleach was actually in high school when me and my friend, we were big Naruto fans. It was still running back then. And we had one guy in our class who was like a huge Bleach fan. And neither me nor my friend had seen Bleach. That guy had not seen Naruto, but we had a ritual where every single German class in the break, we would sit together, we would shit on the other's favorite series without knowing a damn thing about it. And like we would just keep pulling shit out of our asses. We'd be like, oh, but can Naruto do this? Oh, but can the guy in Bleach do that? And it was so dumb, but it just like flashed back to me now while we were talking about it. Like that probably was my first proper like taste of Bleach, just being radicalized into shitting
So
on it.
you're saying that you've been the
boredom.
scourge of the Bleach community since your youth.
Yes. Ocean's exposed once
Ocean's
again.
Bleach terrorist.
No, don't call me that. Hashtag Ocean is over party. Trending again.
Yet again.
Yet again.
All right, so we have hit about time again for all. So, what are some final thoughts, you guys, on the manga of the last generation that more or less played a big old hand in shaping this one? It's pretty hard to go 10 feet on Twitter without someone telling you that whatever your series is doing is just a ripoff of the big three.
I don't know. Fiction existed before the big three, but it sure did kind of peak there.
Let's fucking go. That's true, dude. Fucking big true on that shit. Oh my god.
Powerful words.
They showed up. They all learned from Dragon. They all improved on Dragon Ball. Did their own things without like just doing Dragon Ball, right? They have never been topped yet. Like, in my opinion, if somebody were to ask me, like, I have a totally open mind and I'm interested in checking out an anime, what would you recommend? Naruto, Bleach, One Piece. One of them. I don't mean somebody who's, like, literally never heard of anime. It's all weird hentai. I mean, just your default, right? Like, these things are so good that they started, like, decades ago and we're still talking about them. Like, Naruto and Bleach went on for that long because they're that good. One Piece is going on for this long and selling this well. They all sold well because it's that good, right? Like, there's a certain point where you just have to take a step back and be like, I was able to experience all three of these as they were just starting, and I'm able to look back at like how far they've come and appreciate all the love and effort that went into these things, and they have just never been touched.
It's kind of a privilege, isn't it, to think back on growing up with Naruto, Luffy, and Ichigo.
Yeah, and I know that there are gonna be people who watch this who like can't relate, and that fucking sucks for you, person who's listening to this that I just made up. Like watching Naruto as a kid was the best. It was the best.
It was just a different experience, yeah.
It was so magical, and just none of the shit that bothers me about it now mattered, and it was just great. And if nostalgia is what's carrying the three of these to like basically my top 10 anime of all time list, fine. But there are people out there who love these things and have kept them alive, right? When you think about it. I mean, it's people buying One Piece volume. It was people playing the shit out of Brave Souls and streaming. Like, Bleach has been over, and it's consistently the anime. I'm sorry, not the manga. Like, even when the anime was over, it was consistently in the popular section on Crunchyroll. Consistently, like, people watched the anime, people played the mobile games, people wanted Ichigo and Jump Force. I mean, obviously he was going to be in it, but like, the love for the three of these series, I think, just has never been matched. Like, I don't
Yeah,
even
I mean,
care
for all
that.
you need to say is that Bleach is coming back, and it's not coming back
Yeah.
because Shonen Jump got bored. It's coming
Yeah.
back because people want it back.
Yeah. Like, all the memes aside of like these dumb idiots who were screaming for 10 years, the anime back. Like there was a lot of passionate people that wanted it back. We were all, not you, Oceans.
No.
We were those people. Like, I had always said I don't think it'll ever happen, but I would love to see it happen, right? And like, I think it's that love and passion series that has made them so immortal. They were the first three anime to really shit out sales and permeate that cultural barrier between Japan and the rest of the world. They're just three of the most extraordinary pieces that exist in at least the anime medium. For me, they're all extraordinary in their own way. That's all I've got to say.
Yeah,
I can top that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think either one of us could top that. That was pretty fucking good. Yeah. I guess the only thing I want to say on them is don't, and not just on the topic of like the Bleach misinformation. Don't, but even like with One Piece and Naruto, don't let their status or like the fact that they're so popular impede you from wanting to experience them or wanting to enjoy them. That they're overhyped or they're old or whatever. Like, I encourage all of you to, if you have, by some chance, you watch a show called Shonen and Chill and you have not seen all of three of these, I implore you to at least try them. Because these are the series that helped get the entire medium to where it is now.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
We wouldn't be here doing a weekly shonen show as Westerners if these three shows hadn't existed. Like, straight up.
And each one of us took something from one of them and most definitely spoke to us in a way that impacted us in our lives. Like, it's a magical thing, and these three are emblematic of an entire generation of anime and manga.
Yeah, they are signifiers of what anime and manga can do for people and how wide-reaching their effects and their impact can be.
I mean, Luffy is like the Mickey Mouse of Japan, right? Like, Luffy, Goku, Naruto, Ichigo, fucking the other guy, what's his name? Astro Boy. Like, these are names that people know. Just it's like Pikachu or Mickey Mouse or Spider-Man. Like, they've broken through that cultural barrier, and it's just, again, extraordinary.
Yeah, like in the 2000s, the big three dropped, and Shakespeare been awfully quiet since. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I haven't heard shit from that motherfucker since that happened, so he's pretty fucking quiet. He saw Kenpachi like rip open his jacket and give a shot, and he fucking threw down the pen while he was writing. Nah, fuck it, I can't. No point. There's no point.
All I'm saying is Romeo and Juliet's anime is not coming back. All right.
Yeah,
Bleach
they ain't bringing that one back.
They ain't bringing that
shit
shit
back.
back.
Remaking that anime.
Oh my god, I got to the scene in Bleach recently where Kenpachi shows up for the first time, where he's just like antagonizing Byakuya a bit. Now, like, I was just reading that in bed, and I like out loud to myself just went like chuckled and went, haha, Neo, and like kept going.
That's like, my boy, dude.
He loves him some Kenpachi, bro.
He's the best character in that whole shit. He's so good. He might be the best character in the big three. Who knows?
I guess I'll find out.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
All right,
Anyway,
everybody. I think
Fucking
that's a
try that shit.
yeah.
I will.
Try
Try
one
it.
of them. Try all of them.
Watch all of them. Love all of them. We know you will. But I think that's a
You
good place to
fucking
cut
better.
it.
I'll find you. I will find you.
Now, we're not allowed to make threats here, so I will have to declare this a joke officially, otherwise we get sued.
Yes. This is all in the sake of humor.
Yes.
But yeah, give them a try. We know you'll love them. It's been 2.5 hours, and we could probably keep going for another 2.5 at least if we really wanted to.
That's true, but the next hour would definitely just be raw peak goat
Raw peak
iconography.
fiction.
Yeah, just Kino, goat swag, raw. Yeah. And we would only have been talking about Kenpachi.
Drip Chigoat Ichigo Raw Swaggy.
All right. Well.
All right.
Thanks
We're
for
gonna
watching,
do
everybody.
we're gonna do the outro. Thank you everybody for watching this special episode. Thank you Neo for joining us as Mr. One Piece, Mr.
course.
Peace, first name
Anytime.
One.
Yeah.
And
Anytime.
Oceans, you're stuck here contractually, so I don't have to thank you for being Mr. Naruto.
I love you too, Zen.
And we will see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in. Bye bye.
I won't see you
Bye.
next time.